And welcome, everyone. This is Radio Midnight, episode number 10 of the WoDCast. This is Harlequin coming to you live on Google Plus Hangouts with my friends from worldofdarkness.news. We got a pretty good panel here, and we're going to have some very, very good discussion. First, let's introduce some of the new folks and old-time returning folks from the original WoDCast. First, we got new timer and over from Europe, Nathan. Nathan, welcome to the WoDCast. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your background as it pertains to gaming.
So I'm a British psychologist and game designer, and I'm currently living in Finland, working on a PhD in a games research lab about role-playing. I've been involved with LARP for about 20 years. I used to run a game in the Camarilla Global Organisation, and I recently was at End of the Line, the new Nordic Vampire LARP in Finland.
Excellent. And you were at the End of the Line LARP event, correct?
Yes, I played a Toreador Anarch's pet ghoul.
We're definitely going to talk about that a little later on, but excellent. Well, we're very happy to have you here. Thank you for taking the time. And we got returning roundtable member, Jeff. Jeff, long time no see, my friend. Thank you so much for popping by again. For anyone who doesn't recall you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Peter. Good to see you all again. This is my voice after a week-long cold and a really intense night of LARPing last night. I am wrapping up a thing that is still sort of a Vampire the Requiem game. It's just been house-rolled all to hell. And I am also working on a project to rebuild Masquerade LARP from the ground up, which we might get to talk about later. Wahahaha. Excellent.
And, of course, we have Tyler returning as well from the original WoDCast when we were focusing on the MMO. Welcome, Tyler.
Hey, how's it going? I believe my name back then I used an Oscavian, but gaming-wise, I've been playing a 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons game, running a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons game, which I do like, and my group knows that our next game is going to be Vampire the Masquerade, because that's definitely a game I like to play.
Excellent. And last but certainly not least, we have returning once again to our presence, Obsidian Entertainment's #1 designer.
Oh God, no! Don't, no.
Lady Keita, aka. Well, I'm giving you a little too many props, I know, but.
Yeah, no. I'm still the new kid. Well, no, we've had a couple of hires, so it's me.
But glad to see you again, Michelle. How's things going on at Obsidian these days? Any fun stories you can tell us?
Actually, yes. We had our launch party, which that was always interesting. Well, it was a launch party for hilariously Dungeon Siege 3, Pathfinder Adventures, Armored Warfare, and Pillars of Eternity, also, and Tyranny, all in one.
Okay.
Dungeon Siege never had a launch party, and there's still people from it around, so we kind of threw this huge party and all had got drunk and had fun. And then somehow I got up and played board games the next day.
Okay. We'll go with that.
Yes, and then the fun of the Tyranny announcement from GDC and everybody thinking it's World of Darkness, even though people from Paradox and Obsidian are all saying, guys, it's not World of Darkness. we were just sitting there watching like /R or White Wolf go, oh my God, it's World of Darkness, and we're just going, come on, guys, really, September, it's let Paradox do their thing.
That's too funny. So, a couple things we should just get right off the bat, get out of the way. Last episode, we had a first-time roundtable person, Downey DeVere, who has now been hired by White Wolf. So congrats to Dee. So happy for her. She seems very, very excited. And by the number of Facebook comments and likes, she's kind of a big deal. She's apparently a very big deal. And the great thing, this is why she's probably my internet crush. She literally, in the main thread where everyone was thanking her and congratulating her and, saying good job and, hope it goes well, she, literally replied to every person individually, which I thought was pretty classy, not going to lie.
She's really cool. I was over in England for an on-site interview for a job I didn't get, and we went and hung out and had, in Horsham, of all places, which is, a little tiny town outside of London, and we went and hung out for 6 hours before my interview the next day. She's a shit ton of fun to hang out with, and she also basically handled the European licensing with a very small team for the past, I want to say 6 years. Mm. So, she was, the White Wolf contact in Europe for a long time.
Oh.
Just for localization, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another big thing is she already is well liked by the community, so it was a really smart hire on their part.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm very excited. If I'm trying to recall her position, she's actually on the business side of things. Her title is business something or other. Michelle, you probably recall.
I'd actually have to go look. I don't know.
It's business something or other. So she's on the business side of things. But what I find interesting, not that, we're kind of segueing now, but it's interesting. White Wolf hired a new editor, and now they've hired a person on the business side of things. So they definitely, they're definitely growing.
They're growing. They're growing, and the IPO announcement is actually a really big, important thing. Her actual background is a lot in licensing and localization, so it actually makes sense that that's where they hired her. The IPO announcement timing and then hiring her is really important because she not only has knowledge of the IP inside and out, the move to an IPO means that they're also possibly are looking at funding their own games, etc., using the IP, or Paradox is. Since still technically they're a subsidiary of Paradox, so they still can use Paradox funding for stuff.
Right.
So
well, on the flip side, to be honest, anytime someone says, "Oh, we're going," the company's going public with an IPO, great, it gives them an influx of cash, some liquid capital, but then they go corporate. And
not always. If you look at the European style of IPO is completely different than the American style of IPO. Look at what happened with it's completely the guys who did The Witcher, Project Red. They went public, didn't change at all.
Wow, I didn't even know they went public. That's how low key it was. It was just wow.
That's the thing though, is even going public, the only reason why Swedish law requires them to make a public statement. Look at what happened with, and the thing is also when you look at the laws for different companies, you see very different responses and things like that. American public style of IPO and the way angel investment and venture capitalism works in the United States creates a very different atmosphere when a company goes public. Also depends on the venture capitalists that are investing and who technically owns ownership of the company. Another great example of this is when you look at what happens with Riot with I think 90% of their shares are Tencent. So when you look at their actual numbers removing the investment from Tencent, you see a very different perspective of a company that is getting investment mostly from the Chinese government versus a company such as that is also has investment from Tencent, Hi-Rez Studios, that is still self-sufficient before having a major investor come in. Because of that, you see atmospheres in the company that are very different, and you also see this in the difference between European studios and American studios, and even the difference between, say, a Polish studio and a French studio. The difference between Ubisoft and Project Red 5, both are public studios. One has multiple locations in multiple countries, but studio to studio is different. Another great example is BioWare, the difference between Edmonton, the difference between Montreal, and the difference between Austin. three completely different personalities of studios.
Yeah, I heard that. I've heard that from some ex-employees who've, they posted blogs or been interviewed, and they've reiterated that they're like it's BioWare. I'm not sure how it is since EA gobbled them up, but back before that happened,
even with EA, the difference between the people that I've met from Edmonton, the difference between the people I've met from Austin, both current and past, is very, very different. Their personalities are very different. Like, one of my favorite people to hang out with on the internet is Jim Hedgie from EA, or from BioWare/EA Austin. And he is your stereotypical gun-toting, ATV-riding Texan versus... he's one of their network engineers, but also loves to build robots. But then when you look at people from Edmonton, they're very quiet and very laid back. And like, some of them are a little crazier, but they're much more low-key. Even the difference in, like, even out here, so, like, Blizzard's down the street, the difference when you get, so if you get In Exile and Obsidian together, we're fine. Blizzard, we scare them sometimes.
All right, now before we get oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh no, I have friends and loved ones in Austin, Texas. Austin's a very nice town. It's sort of like scooping up Portland, Oregon, and dropping it into the middle of Texas. So it's not that bad of a town. Just saying.
I love Austin.
Before we get too crazy, we cannot. It would not be a WoDCast without us. What is our tasty beverage of the day? Previous WoDcast, I was under the weather. I was having honey with green tea, but I am not under the weather this time around. And a little Sam Adams Cold Snap. This episode brought to you by. What do we got over there, Tyler? What's going on for our tasty beverage?
Smithwick's Premium Irish Ale.
Oh, nice, good call. Do we have anything over there, Nathan?
Yeah, it's surprisingly hard to get good tea in Finland. I'll say I'm a British guy, I need my tea. In England, we of course have ranks of tea by brand, and we just call it tea, and then there's this strange herbal stuff as well. Whereas here I have to buy something called English breakfast tea. It is the closest approximation I can find to proper tea here.
Fair enough. And Michelle, you said you're at work at Obsidian, but apparently you guys still partake in the tasty beverages over there.
Well, it's Sunday, so anytime past 7 o'clock, but even sometimes beforehand. But I've got a Magic Hat Winter Seasonal over here.
Not bad at all. Nice. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Jeff. We have a tasty beverage today.
Also under the weather, also green tea.
Okay.
And some serious beer envy for those of you who are currently drinking.
I know, it's after a 2-year hiatus, the WoDCast come back last month, and I had a sore throat and I was under the weather, and there was just no way alcohol was going to sit well with me. So no way I would have got through a whole WoDCast with alcohol. What's that?
Hot toddy.
Oh my goodness! Look at you over there. All right, just creating incidents over there. Now, first thing so again, our congratulations to Downey on her getting hired by White Wolf, and definitely we're going to see where this goes. It's definitely bodes well, I think. On our last WoDCast, on that day, actually, we had our Justin Achille interview.
Show up randomly.
Yes, who randomly showed up in our stream last episode as well. Now, he didn't say too many things that I didn't expect, except definitely him working on Ravenloft back in the day. I found very interesting and insightful.
I didn't know that.
I did not know that either until I was doing research for the interview, and I was like, oh. Yeah, so that was very interesting. And we talked a little bit about, hindsight's 2020, and looking back at first edition Requiem, some of the regrets he has. And he was very honest and very upfront with what he felt worked and what he felt didn't work. When on the initial release, and I don't know if you guys had a chance to read that, but not too much. No groundbreaking news, but it's very insightful and very informative for anyone who's watching who hasn't seen that. worldofdarkness.news under the articles section. Go check it out. It's definitely worth the 10 minutes it'll take you to read it, because it's very, very insightful. He basically, he basically said, reiterates what I think everyone at this point knows about First Edition Requiem, what the flaws were with it. He accepts that, realizes that, and if he could go back and change things, he definitely said he would. So, so it's very, very good, very, very interesting. So you can go check it out. Definitely do that. Now, the real big thing I want to talk about, Lore of the Clans. Which I backed. I don't know. Any of you guys back Lore of the Clans?
Oh, yes.
Excellent. I'm still waiting for my deluxe edition.
Me too. I haven't gotten mine.
Okay,
either.
so it's just not me.
I think mine got delivered to Atlanta on accident.
Oh, you got your... What?
If it got delivered, I think it went to Atlanta if they went out, but I don't know because I haven't checked
Well, they're shipping from the printer. The last update I saw, which was a weekish ago, they said they're shipping from the printers. So.
Well, if they're shipping from the printers, then it's coming out of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then it is possible that I got mine in Atlanta because I forgot to change my address.
Michelle, oh my goodness, are you kidding me?
Dude, I had a week to move. You kidding me?
Oh, that's true too. That's true too.
It's too much. I had a week to move, and then it was, oh, by the way, we're shipping a month, so yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. But I know. So Tyler, you don't have your deluxe either.
I believe the regular versions have shipped, but I don't think the deluxe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can go on Drive-Thru RPG and pick up the normal. The regular print editions. That's what I did, because I don't want to be cracking open and messing up the deluxe edition very much. So, I just bought the because if you back it, you can, for almost cost, you can purchase a regular hardcover edition, and it was like what, $40 maybe.
Yeah, they're pretty cheap.
$30-$40. Yeah, so it was very inexpensive. But of course, again, as a backer, I got it for near cost. So. I have to imagine the normal, your average person who wants to get it's probably more expensive, but nonetheless, so a little over 300 pages. I actually wrote up a review about it on worldofdarkness.news for anyone who wants to go check it out. But basically, I thought it was good. I feel it's a solid 8 out of 10 on a review scale. Some of the artwork really wasn't working for me. Not that it was bad artwork. It just wasn't my forte. Art is, as I said in the review, art is an acquired taste, and some of it just wasn't me. But some people might think it's the best thing since sliced bread. So your mileage will vary on that, of course. But I thought the content was excellent. I really liked how they used third person format when they were it made you really feel like you were part of this conversation, and I liked all the different perspectives of the different clan histories. I found that very intriguing, and it's kind of like a sandbox book. Take the parts you want that you believe is quote unquote true for your chronicle or the truth, and then the other versions that they talk about, you can just use as rumors or chest pounding clan propaganda or outright lies, or just totally ignore it. So it's very interesting. Every clan has at least 2 different alternatives to their history, usually more, and I thought it was really, really good. You said you got the regular version too, Tyler?
No, not yet. I need to pick it up. I've been waiting on my deluxe edition, but like you said,
I was waiting on it too. But then I finally said, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna buy the records," and it came in like 3 days.
Nice.
So I was like,
I'll definitely look into that.
I just couldn't wait any longer.
One of the things I've always loved about White Wolf is the unreliable narrator. I think that's just great.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you other guys? You guys back it or pick it up or going to pick it up?
Not me. I've not seen it yet.
I just haven't had time to read like anything.
And what about you, Jeff? Lord of the Clans do anything for you?
Is he disconnected?
Oh, I think he might be. What happened to Jeff?
He blew up.
Poor Jeff. He'll connect back, hopefully.
Oh,
Oh, there he is.
hey guys. Sorry.
Oh, there he is. Lord of the Clans, you gonna? Did you get it? You gonna get it? What's going on, Jeff?
The excerpts, it looks really cool. I just haven't run Masquerade for a while, and I will always have a place in my heart for Masquerade, but I think Requiem definitely hits my Vampire Game button better than old Masquerade, but I like what I've seen of it so far, so.
Fair enough. Fair
Awesome.
enough. Yeah. I mean, overall, I think, if you run a Masquerade Chronicle or, you just like reading lore books, I can't recommend it highly enough. I thought it was very, very good. And, definitely when, like I said, you get it, Tyler, I'll definitely be interested in getting your feedback. And you too, Michelle, when you guys get yours, definitely be interested to see what your feedback is on it. But as I said, I
Ask
definitely...
me again next month.
Exactly. The only thing I will say, I mean, I don't want to give it all heaping it with a praise. There are a couple, besides the art, again, you could argue that's personal preference. The two really big things that kind of irked me with it was a very thin selection of NPCs. There's only like a dozen, and I thought for a book of a little over 300 pages, I thought that was kind of cheap, kind of weak.
Well, I mean, I prefer it that way, and that just might be just me being weird, but I prefer there be fewer NPCs because then you can focus on them as examples of characters as a whole. And then on top of that, it's not supposed to be like Pathfinder where you have the preset characters that you then hand a player to play as. It's one of those things that are examples of how to play. So by having it focus on a narrow range of characters and say, hey, here's some good examples of what we think you should be, compared to like other systems, and I, of course, go to Pathfinder right now because I have been like so deeply like just drowned in Pathfinder stuff recently, where it's basically here's this character, here's this storyline, play through it, with a couple varying options. The big thing with World of Darkness has always been build your character, build out your character, build their personality, etc., and the system lends itself to it, versus having the more guided path that you see in a lot of D10 or D20 systems with, once again, Pathfinder, because I'm in it with like the hero system where you have all these heroes for each class, they each have their backstory, etc. You're handed the character sheet and you play through it as that character. That's where the Rise of the Rune Lords paths, etc. come in. And then the GM tells that story and you kind of have the variance that the player plays, but it's still pretty much a straight linear path. Versus with Lord of the Clans, it's like, okay, here's this path being played out by these characters, but you really, it's greatly implied throughout White Wolf books to not play as those characters, but as your own, but play in that style if you're nervous that you're playing it wrong.
I think I would agree with that. When I want example NPCs, I tend to go to the City by Night books, which have a whole bunch of characters, many of which aren't really tied to that city. You can easily lift out and drop the concept into whatever you're running.
Now, Nathan, on that same theme, I'd love to get your input. Why? And I actually had a bit of a discussion on the message forums on World of Darkness News. Why, 10, 20 years ago, these themed books where they would talk about, if they were fantasy, they talk about entire continents, and with the more modern books like Shadowrun and Vampire the Masquerade, they had source books for just cities, littered with interesting locations and PCs and events, and it really helped you gave just a plethora of ideas and really got the creative juices flowing because it kind of gave you this basic framework to play with. And I don't know why. Well, first of all, I don't know why White Wolf doesn't do like a Kickstarter with a book with that kind of thing that, like the 12 biggest, kindred cities in the world, and they talk about the courts, the major NPCs in the courts of that city, or if it's the Sabbats, those groups, and interesting locations and major NPC and that kind of thing. And I always love those books. And
I can tell
I don't know why.
I can tell you why it
can't
doesn't
find them
happen.
anymore.
Yeah, the reason for that, I was discussed this with the Atlas Games actually, who make Ars Magica, and I was telling them they need to make more good scenario books to get the game actually played. And the reason they don't is because if they make a generic source book, every player in the group might buy a copy. If they make a scenario book, which effectively is what you're describing, I know it's not quite, but it's similar, only the storyteller will buy a copy. So you've inherently got a lot less sales.
There is a possibility,
though. Sales to get it economically viable. Now, granted, it's not quite that because with White Wolf City books, you've got other people who just want to learn the lore might buy it as well. But still, I think it's the same principle.
But you also have, when you look at things like, for example, Pathfinder Society, and once again, keep going back to that just because I'm dropped in it for work. You have those individual books for the various Pathfinder Society adventures, so the individual Rise of the Rune Lords, etc. If they did it as a subscription service, they could possibly do it that way, where every month you get like a different city or things like that, which there isn't a floor, etc. But if they did it as a PDF, and then with the option for a discounted print on demand, there could be profit there. But there also comes the argument of they're redoing everything. The first thing to do is to get the core rule books out and then go back and look at the cities, etc. You're also right now, I don't know what Richard and Onyx Path's plan originally was, because Paradox buying out CCP's holding of White Wolf changed their plans significantly. That's just the way the industry works. So even if there was plans there, those probably got disrupted. I mean, when you look at the history, some of the best-selling White Wolf books were some of the city books, such as Chicago by Night, etc. But those required having those core rule books, and several other rule books in play at the time. Which, as those books were in pipeline or are in pipeline, currently being worked on or having just come out, because I think Lore of the Clans is one of them, since technically the Clan books I think came out before Chicago by Night. I'd actually have to go look that up, so don't quote me on that. You'd run into the issue of, okay, we need to establish these set of rules before we bring those set of rules in. And because of that order, you'd have to wait. So it may be we just gotta wait because we just saw an IP change hands completely, and not just change hands, change continents. So you see it go from a US base, which is completely different than a European base. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next. So predicting what if and when those are disappearing or if they're coming back is like kind of a fool's errand right now.
The impression I got from the new guys at White Wolf, I saw Martin a month or so ago, is that they're essentially going to be a licensing organisation. So they're not running Convention of Thorns or Enlightenment in Blood and Berlin. They're licensing other people to run them. And equally, with 4th edition, they might just look to license a big name like Final Flight, who make the Dark Heresy RPG. They might just sell them the license and get them to do it. So it may not actually be them. I mean, they'll have obviously some artistic control over it, but it may not be them directly employing a writer to write it.
Well, no, I mean, by hiring Martin, they were basically saying we want to have it as IP control and as a transmedia property. But it was literally licensing it out, but having a control, so that way it's one of those things that the narrative is, it's a streamlined narrative no matter who they license to. They can go in, like, so what Lucasfilm does is they license out Star Wars usually. well, Lucasfilm/Disney, but what they used to do is they license out Star Wars. Excuse me. And then basically come in and go, okay, this is okay with lore, this is okay with lore, this isn't okay. You have to change the storyline, this person's name can't be here, and things like that. That's why, like, that you saw certain games get away with things like that Star Wars Kinect dancing game. But versus, like, Star Wars The Old Republic, they came in and basically had creative control over everything for a certain point in time. And then the marker when they hit free-to-play is when BioWare had officially paid back Lucasfilm for the license so they could kind of have more leniency. And you see that's kind of how I see White Wolf moving in that direction.
Coming back more towards the original topic, are we going to get adventure books and city books? It's interesting to look at different RPGs and their tradition here, because say Call of Cthulhu has always published masses of actually quite good scenario books, and that's worked for Call of Cthulhu. D&D obviously has a tradition of publishing adventure books. Vampire traditionally, when it has tried to do adventure books like Diablo Mexico, they've been pretty terrible. That said, however, their by night books, some of them have actually been quite good, because that's a far better style of writing format of here's an environment, and I'm talking a social environment of NPCs for you to interact with them, to play with, not a linear adventure. And it's the only other game that really do that was Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay in the old days, where they had a lot of city books.
No. I'm going to correct you there, because Shadowrun has always done city books.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm not tough on Shadowrun, that's fine. But you see, obviously, it's a very different style of writing, and possibly more suited to the style of game. So yes, it will be interesting to see, are they going to try and stick with that the city book, the Creator Sandbox book, or are they going to try and do go back to the here's a more structured adventure for you to follow? And also remember, the Scandinavians have more of a tradition, at least in their LARP circles, of the organisers write all the characters. So it may be more of rather than everyone make a character and play this pre-written adventure, which doesn't necessarily have anything to do with them, it may be more, here's the adventure, and here's the default characters to play with it. So that the adventure is tailored to fit the characters. Might be heresy.
We're definitely going to, I'm sure that will come up when we start hitting on the LARP part of this discussion. But let's head back. Jeff, what's your thoughts on these source books? Do you like them, or are they just not your thing?
Overall, I think they help show, as a storyteller, what you can do with a story, where the story is trying to go. Overall, one of the reasons why I definitely do way more with Requiem the Masquerade, I'm way more interested in a hyperly local focused game. That in my world, Requiem, vampires in LA do not care what's happening to vampires in Detroit as long as they wake up in the news and say, oh hey, there's vampires in Detroit. Whereas I think the source books are really interesting. They tend to have a little bit of flavor, and I've read a good number of them. But overall, they're not really high on my, I guess, stack of gaming books to read all the time, because I want to read things that I'll be using in the game I'm running. But they're cool reads for sure when I have time.
And what about you, Tyler? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think.
Tyler's...
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
You're good.
Okay, fantastic. I think the modules, like Rise of the Runelords, are very good for new players, or particularly new GMs or new DMs or storytellers. Like, I started Pathfinder with the Rise of the Runelords. Fantastic module. That said, we never finished it.
What did you do to your spine on that?
Actually, my brother dropped it. Yes. But, it's a great adventure, but we never finished it because, well, I kind of wanted us to get sidetracked because I got bored with the adventure. But I also have New York by Night, which is fantastic, and I actually prefer these books because they give you all this character background, all these characters, some locations, and you can sort of pick and choose what you want. Or if you are in the middle of trying to improvise and you need to pick a quick antagonist, well, you've got a whole list. You just have to remember, his name, like Valentine or something. Introduce the basic concept of that character, and then you can flesh out what happens because of that a little bit later.
Right. No, I'll tell you, as a longtime Shadowrun player, when FASA was, the original producers of the Shadowrun line, when they had when they were doing the run of the books, they came out with some of the best source books. The Seattle source book, the Chicago when there was that bug spirit infestation. Then later on, when they got bought up by WizKids, actually, I believe they did a Boston Lockdown, which actually wasn't too bad. But anyway,
yeah,
they actually did as a whole, even though it's passed through, I think, 3 owners' hands at this point, Shadowrun has. It's done really. The source books have always been its strength, and I'll tell you, I probably would not have run my campaign in Shadowrun as long as I had if I didn't have some of those source books for just some ideas or concepts or to get my creative juices flowing. So yeah, I'm a big fan, and I'm really hoping that I think it's too much to ask for an individual source book per city, like the old school for a second edition did, but certainly a book like Lore of the Clans, 200-300-page book that has a city per chapter that gives the basic structure, some handful of major NPCs and some major events, and just to get the storytellers a kickstart. If that's where they want to base their.
Well, they've also kind of been doing that when they do the LARP games within the individual cities. Like you had LA by Night, which also came with a setting specific for LA by Night. You had Vegas by Night, which also had a specific setting for Vegas by Night. I always personally go back to Chicago by Night because that was the first source book I ever paid full price for. Because in Atlanta it was actually fairly easy to find at used bookstores. God knows how many World of Darkness books. My first vampire book I tripped over in a used bookstore and bought for $2. And that was back in high school. So that was still decently expensive for a used bookstore book. But like the Chicago by Night book not only is perfectly covers the gothic punk aesthetic that they kind of went with, but the other thing with it was it had accurate locations within Chicago that would make sense, such as if you remember for the longest time on the White Wolf store you could buy the Alley Chicago shirts. The Alley no longer exists, but it used to be this shop that was like the shop to go to buy goth, like stereotypical goth and punk gear in Chicago, like your stereotypical kitschy like goth shop, like all lip service outfits and things like that. Like it was just Hot Topic on steroids. But that's where the Prince of the City lived in the lore, and it was like one street over from Halstead, which literally the lampposts are rainbow colored, so that gives you an idea what's on Halstead. But the fact for those cities, even if you didn't live there, it gave you a basis and it gave you an accurate map, which you did somewhat have in Shadowrun, which there was a pyramid dropped in the Seattle book on Jordan Weisman's house, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. No, they dropped a pyramid.
Wasn't
That was Red
can I
Raccoon.
come in on this? Wasn't there a famous Shadowrun supplement that put Stonehenge in Scotland? And I had it was that badly researched. And they had St. Paul's Cathedral in Belgium.
I don't know, but if you find it, there's some Shadowrun devs I can make fun of for it.
In the recent change in the Lost game, I'll point out the Goblin Market at the incorrectly named Pike's Peak Market, not Pike Place Market.
That's because no one. I don't remember if anybody actually lived in Seattle, and now they all live in Seattle.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, 'cause,
everyone.
wasn't FASA based in Chicago? if I recall correctly.
It may have been Chicago or New York, because Tom started in New York, and then moved a couple times. Because the guys that were FAFSA eventually went to Microsoft Studios, and then like bounced around for a bit. Because like Mitch and Jordan and Tom stuck around together for years, and then they got split at some point. And then Hairbrain formed, and that's when they kind of all got back together. Kind of, though Tom's still in Chicago.
Right. All right. So now let's now since we're talking about books, that's a great segue. I was going to say White Wolf, but that's not who I want to say.
I was just thinking that Vampire is actually quite well in terms of by night books compared to the other White Wolf games. If you try and find mage adventures or city books, it's a lot harder. And Mage is a game that really could have done with some example adventures on this is how to run the game.
That actually wouldn't be a bad idea, actually.
Mage, there are stories on why that happened, and I've heard a couple of them from Alex Skokal, but it'd be better if I got him to tell them, but I don't think he wants to go run away from Mario Kart right now.
I don't know if you've heard of a fanzine called Sub Rosa.
Yes.
It's a semi-official fanzine from Atlas for Ars Magica. So I think it's every quarter, and they do not publish new rules. They publish NPCs, magic items, maybe short adventures or encounters, and just you've got easy material that you could just drop into a game. And I was actually thinking that really that there might be a market for something like that for World of Darkness.
That they did that already. That was what it was in White Wolf magazine.
Well, it's not around anymore, though, is it?
No, and there was a reason for that, and that's because they went under, and it was not doing as well because the magazine market went up. But also, like that's what these came out of. Yeah. For Pathfinder had an entire comic series that was based off the short adventures that were in the monthly thing that came out. Done by Jim Zub, who also does Figment, the comic, and Wayward. And the D&D comic book, and every other tabletop comic known to man is basically written by Jim Zub at this point. But yeah, they tried that, and then because I have a bunch of the old White Wolf magazines, and they had short stories, and I know a couple of the developers for Requiem, etc. Some of them had their first start in there, and then there was NPCs that would come in. Some of the books came out of it, just little short blips, and then when White Wolf magazine stopped, those just about stopped too. You saw a couple of things pop out on the internet, they go on the website and things like that. But just kind of you've seen the death of the magazine as a format, though you've seen some of the e-publications, etc. I can see some of that stuff coming out there, but if you look on DriveThruRPG, they do have the free supplements that come out once in a while. Those are kind of now the new format for supplemental NPCs, supplemental short stories and scenarios, is, hey, we did this Kickstarter, let's give some stuff out for free. And same with free RPG days, you tend to see stuff come out then. When those come out, that tends to be free RPG day is the best day to just release free supplemental stuff, is because everybody's already looking for it. But from time to time, if you check DriveThruRPG, you'll see White Wolf supplements pop up from Onyx Path that are just one little blips or intros or starter kits.
And that's exactly what I want to talk about, Onyx Path. I guess they have an open book development going on called Excerpts and Explanations, and allegedly it's going to be about digging deep into the meta plot within the Masquerade universe. I kind of find that interesting. Do you guys? Well, let's start with you, Jeff. Do you think this is going to be the first steps into this revamping of the Masquerade for V4 that they've implied and hinted about?
Peter, revamping Vampire, really? Was that a pun?
The meta plot we're talking about.
Revamping. Yeah, definitely. They were in Martin's. I got out of Martin's conversation though that they were looking to move more in a video game direction. That they'll still kind of keep with the pen and paper games to some extent. But I thought it sounded like he was moving more in a computer game direction. I thought because the Paradox, but no, shoot.
Well, I definitely
yes,
think they're looking for that, but it seems like the new White Wolf is a multi-pronged beast. They basically want all media. They want the tabletop media. They want the video gaming media, and they've also talked. Tobias has even said if we don't get some sort of like Netflix or similar kind of show based on Masquerade within the next few years, we failed. So they're going.
Transmedia. It's called a transmedia property, and the only thing I probably can actually say on this matter without actually making the internet theorize more, because god damn it, Tyranny was not World of Darkness, guys. Paradox fucking tell you what it is. They're moving towards a transmedia format. What this means is they want an IP that will have a storyline and a meta plot that goes across medias, meaning TV shows, movies, applications, games, in all formats of games.
That are all in the same universe.
All in the same universe. Look at Star Wars. This is what I go back to. Transmedia and if you're interested in transmedia, there's a great book called Storytelling Across Worlds, written partially by the guys who did Shadowrun.
Which is also Martin's background with The Spiral, which was a TV series which he did.
Or Martin and Tobias somewhat, and if you look at how Paradox has handled their IPs in the past, it also makes sense, along with going with the IPO. Very much similar to other companies that have moved towards a transmedia platform in the past, though some of them have been unsuccessful. THQ. Where may you rest in peace. It's very similar in the way those have gone public, etc. Because of this, the only thing I will say is hold the theorizing. Wait till September. If they're going to make an announcement about direction and things like that, they will do it at the Grand Masquerade because it is ideal for that situation. You have a new IP basically taking root. You have Paradox showing at GDC that they're very, very strong with their investments. They have a bunch of games coming out that are not only highly anticipated, but predicted to do better than usual. And because of that, the kind of grand showing of, hey, we're here and we're going to basically just bring this thing back to life, will be the Grand Masquerade.
I would agree with that. I mean, I'm sure they're going to have some big announcements in September. I can't imagine they won't. But they just got to. It's literally a question. They have to.
It's not just that they got to. It's the fact that if you look at what was announced at GDC, if you look at Paradox's schedule for E3, and if you look at Paradox's schedule for PAX, they are light this year. Which means when you have, and if you also look, Martin and Tobias were at GDC, but they were talking about licensing off-site. Like that made me just sit there and laugh that people were like, oh my god, the Paradox is not. I'm like, no, they're off-site, guys. There's some White Wolf stuff off-site. That basically becomes cues of they're saving. They're saving stuff. And because E3 is usually where you make your big announcements for games and things like that. Volition's got a big announcement coming up. There's a couple other big studios that have big announcements at E3, but Paradox doesn't see, or at least unless I'm completely blind, because I've been putting my E3 schedule together, I didn't see anything that's like huge for Paradox there.
That makes sense. What's our other game developer here on the panel, Nathan? What's your take on it?
Sorry, what was the question exactly?
what's I mean, Michelle hit like 5 other topics, so
It's all connected. It's
yeah, it is.
It's kind of what is the big plan.
Right,
Okay,
right. The big overall.
Invariably Paradox are going to do computer games, and they're going to license a tabletop game, and they're going to do these big blockbuster LARP events, and they will try to drop in an interlocking story that runs through it all. Well, those stories too grand a word. They'll try to drop in small hints of a better plot into different games. So yes, as I know, Martin's background is literally transmedia. So he was involved in this series called The Artist or The Spiral. I think the name changed. So it was a TV show that was on in 6 European countries in the same time, and in the show the characters steal art from the National Galleries, which they made disappear for real when the show was on, and the players could do challenges in the real world, points in an online game to then spend to try to find the artwork in real life and return it. And they had me and 40 other LARPers playing the NPCs in the expanded universe, interacting with the public while this was going on social media and in real life. So it might be we'll see him do another event like that in that format. So it's not just lots of different separate games with an interlocking storyline. It's literally a transmedia game where the game itself is across the different media.
Well, I remember him saying he wanted to possibly do something with augmented reality stuff too, which would make sense, especially in the White Wolf universe where you have things like you have the Celicans, you have the you have werewolf, or you have glasswalkers, you have the Nosferatu, which are the very technology-enabled vampires and werewolves, etc.
He did a month-long ARG LARP about 10 years ago, which really was a Wraith LARP, but obviously he didn't have a license then. So the players played normal modern, played themselves. At the start of the game, they got possessed by the wraiths of dead revolutionaries, and they could switch between themselves and their wraith at any point for a whole month. So they'd go and do their day jobs and spend time with their fat loved ones at home, and then they'd also go and plan a revolution and street protests and protest there outside the American embassy for real as their characters. And so yeah, he's done that already. And
I'm sure the American embassy loved that.
Yeah, the armed response unit did turn up, and they said the players said we're staging a peaceful protest against American imperialism.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
All right, let's reel it in. So, getting back to the revamping of the Masquerade meta plot, Tyler, what would you like to see in this book about this revamping? What would you? I don't want to use the word change, but what would you recon?
Oh boy.
Retcon.
Yeah, retcon.
That too. And yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, well, whenever you talk about retconning lore, you can always get people with pitchforks and torches.
Oh, come on.
But
come on, piss as many people as you can off in
please
3
no.
sentences.
Please
in 3
no.
sentences, please.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Do it, Tyler. Do it.
No.
Keep it the tradition of the WoDCast. Piss as many people as you can off. Come on.
Something that that's always irked me is you can tell that the Vampire the Masquerade was created before Vampire the Masquerade Dark Ages, because they had some newer ideas in Dark Ages, but they had to kind of kill them off for the modern times just so there wouldn't be conflicts of lore. Mm-hmm. So
no, I don't do Dark Ages. I just read little excerpts and reviews and such about it. But from my understanding, the new Dark Ages, they retconned like certain histories, right? Like there's literally conflicts in the Dark Age histories of certain clans and such versus like V20 and Lord of the Clans. Is that a correct statement? Because that's the impression I get from reading some of these people discussing it.
Yeah, honestly, I need to read the V20 Dark Ages. I've read the classic Dark Ages a lot more than I have the V20 Dark Ages, so I can't really state too much about what's changed between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good example of that was in the Victorian Ages game. They had to explain that in the Victorian period, all the current elders come off their Dark Age path and go back onto the path of humanity.
Right.
Even though that seems obviously quite an odd thing to do and justify.
Well, they at least did it because you have to change from, at least in Victoria, that era, that it would make sense if they had an awakening closer to the Victorian, because of the Victorian sensibilities from that of Dark Ages. However, I don't think they ever directly explained that. So, like, I remember that explanation in the Victorian era because I do a lot of steampunk stuff. So, of course, Victorian vampire is like my shit. And I read that and I immediately thought of, oh, they go back to it because they're adapting off of the human enlightenment. So it would rub off on them in a way, versus the Dark Ages, you still kind of have that overbearing everything, religious overtones, versus you have the Enlightenment with the Victorian era of, okay, back on path to humanity, because as they start to adapt to a new era, humanity would come with it. It's a janky way of doing it, just to make it an excuse to make it go away, but it still works. And it makes sense, too, with the change in sensibilities, which, since you're skipping over certain periods past the Dark Ages, you can say it's a gradual transition over that period of time.
All right, so that's fair. Jeff, I'll let you have last word on this topic. What's some of the things about the meta plot you'd like to see retconned, changed, modified, added to, what have you? I think he's muted again. Oh, he died. One of the two.
He died.
Did he die?
He died.
Jeff, why are you being like that to me, Jeff? Jeff.
Schrodinger's Jeff.
All right. Who wants last shot at this topic?
I don't.
All right. Our other resident game developer.
Okay.
I'm going to give you like 2 minutes because I got to go grab another beer. So you give your final thoughts on this, and I'll be right back.
Okay. The big thing I would like retconned, even though I know this is not going to happen, is the focus on Gehenna. It was never in the early editions of Vampire, and to me, it completely contradicts the themes of eternity and being stuck in this half-life with these people you hate forever and having to live with that. It made sense for Werewolf as a game. It didn't make sense for Vampire. So I would really... But then I know we go down, now going to be post-Gehenna, so that will change in a different way. So that was the thing I disliked, which I would like fixed.
I don't know. I kind of like the concept of a false Gehenna, because, like, when you think about it, it's everybody's waiting for, or party like it's the end of the world, or everybody's just waiting for the end of the world. So you have this kind of stuck together for eternity, but there's a chance that eternity may end, but you never know if eternity may end, or it may not, or it may will. So it becomes one of those things that you have a belief system for an eternal, a set of immortal beings who should not believe in gods.
I disagree fundamentally with that. You absolutely should believe in God. They can walk into a church and feel His presence.
Well, some of them can, some of them can't.
I don't know. If they start walking around St. Paul's Basilica in Rome, they're going to feel God's presence in a very absolute way.
Right, but the thing is when you look at it, especially when you look at the Malkavians, and when you start looking at, like, the Child of Osiris, aspects to which that were originally only assigned to God, suddenly not only have disappeared, but have become elements of their own power. So, though you have these immortal creatures that, yes, some of them are very susceptible to the touch of God, etc., but can be seen as a touch of true faith. When a mortal believes in something ultimately to the point of their own innocence being returned, it's still not this high concept of an immortal being that controls an immortal being controlling everything, because they themselves are the immortal beings. The idea of them being so fed up with being the immortal being that they themselves believe at this end times is coming, that somehow some other creature that they should not believe in existing has control to finally take their immortality away from them because they are just that fed up with existing, that they'll believe anything. Like it's the whole goes back to more of a human concept of well, again, true faith. The idea that if you believe in something hard enough, you can trick you're just tricking yourself into it being real. But at the same time, there's a possibility it could become real. So if the idea of Gehenna happening, and enough of them buying into it, they eventually cause it. And that's what I love about that concept, is that literally you have these vampires who are just so fucking sick of existing that they cause their own downfall and cause this thing to happen by free will that according to their own ideals they shouldn't have. So as a concept for the world of Vampire, it's not only interesting, but adds an element to character development that you otherwise wouldn't have. Like you have like the followers of Set who are just like, fuck all y'all, I'm going to go and just fuck with all of you because you're idiots. And then but at the same time, you have like Ventrue who are like, or Toreadors and Ventrus who are some of them are completely set on this thing being real, and some of them like, you're full of shit. And then you have other ones in the middle that are like, let's just party. The end of the world happens, who cares? So that element, by having a singularity to which either will come or not come, is an amazing plot device to use that doesn't even have to be active in the active plot, but can be used in character development. And adds a certain human commentary into the entire situation. Because there are elements of just what we do as humans that no way in hell vampires would normally do. But that idea of an end-of-the-world scenario for vampires that is their own undoing is something that's very human, because there are multiple things that we can fuck up and be in an end-of-the-world scenario.
So, Jeff, before you got disconnected, I was going to shoot it to you. What do you think part of this, the digging deep into the meta plot in this new book that Onyx Path is working on? What would you like to see, if there's anything that is going to be changed, edited, retconned? What aspect of the meta plot that would you like to see that happen to?
This is for Masquerade. Correct? Cool. I like what Martin said about the tone. Like, I trust them with regard to the minute details where they're going with events and things, but I liked a lot what Martin was talking about with regard to the tone of the game. That we've gotten a little bit into the high fantasy realm a little here or there in the last few years with Masquerade, and there are some ways we have forgotten that this is a game of horror, personal horror, deep horror. I think one of the best things that came out of the Gehenna book was that in a few places, it made it a really specifically personal experience. That this is not just how the world ends, this is how your immortal world ends. And how that factors into your existence as a character in this story. So I'm mostly looking for tone here, folks, because they'll get the names and dates and stuff right, I guess, but I want to see what the story feels like.
And I guess this is a good segue. Some of you folks said you wanted to bring this up, and I guess this is the best place to segue. Thanks to Jeff there. V4. What little information we have, we know that it's been hinted that there definitely is going to be a rules revision, refresh of the rules. So there's no more buckets full of dice. Personally, I find that entertaining, but not saying I think it works well, but it's entertaining. Talk about buckets full of dice when to play a game, which isn't too far from the truth. In some situations, let's be honest. And it's going to be post-Gehenna, but not, according to Martin, it's not going to be post-apocalyptic, but it is going to be post-Gehenna, something called the War of the Antediluvians, which he chose not to expand upon, has happened. The War of the Antediluvians, War of the Graves happened, kind of implies that a couple antediluvians perhaps rose, and they got taken down, or something or other happened. But certainly, Gehenna, as imagined in the V20 and previous editions, didn't quite happen. And that actually plays into pretty much all religious prophecies, if you will, or apocalyptic prophecies. They never happen the way that they're envisioned or people think it's going to happen. And so that I actually kind of like that. But I digress. We know it's going to be post Gehenna, but not post apocalyptic. It is modern nights. And we don't know. And there is going to be, and he pretty much said there's going to be a retcon of the metaplot, and that's why I was talking about this book, Excerpts and Explanations, the book that digs into the metaplot of V20. I kind of think this is going to be laying the groundwork for perhaps some of this retcon or some of these changes coming along. And so taking this one step further to V4, what are your thoughts on where the game is going, and what do you think some of the biggest changes are going to be? We'll go with we'll start with you, Nathan, then we'll go to Tyler.
Okay, there's two big changes which I've heard about. These are based off End of the Line, to people like the Pearson who are on the inside. In relation to the Antediluvians Gehenna plot, what I gather is that the Beast Within is going to be replaced with the Antediluvians Within. So it's not your personal foraging id anymore, it's your clan founder or other ancients pulling your strings and manipulating you through the blood. So I suspect we will find, this is my suspicion, the Antediluvians wake up, but they're not just big vampires with bodies anymore, they've ascended to be, they are the clan. In a very literal sense, you can see this in the new Tamara book, the Dark Hand book. This is what Samiski has done. Samiski is the clan, essentially. He is the blood. Well, I think essentially that's what they've all done.
Interesting. Wow, that's actually going to be a pretty fundamental change then.
I personally, I really like the Beast Within, and I hope that this is an addition to it, not a replacement for, personally.
That's fair. Tyler, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think one of the what Nathan was saying is very interesting. It's kind of like I know Malcav was kind of similar to that with the Malkavian Madness Network. But yes, that's really interesting. I like that, but I definitely agree with you don't want to lose the sort of inner struggle vampires have with their humanity, because that's like one of the major selling points of vampire.
That's a cornerstone.
But ironically, they did in End of the Line. Actually, I agree with you completely, but End of the Line had explicitly had no Beast Within, no frenzy, and no concept of humanity. And I asked the organizer before the game, and was told clearly they're not using that in this game at all.
Huh.
Now, he did make it clear this does not necessarily reflect the future of the vampire line.
Right.
Okay.
But
it's interesting. It's an interesting approach, shall we say.
And another
does
thing
that
that's...
mean...
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they didn't give you like a full dossier on it, but does that mean that like the Ravnos don't have an Antediluvian within anymore because that got blown up? And
well, there's a couple of easy answers to that. One is it just means one of his child has taken over, or how do we really know he's dead? He could bend reality at will. Maybe he just escaped into Arcadia or something.
And like the Salubri don't have one.
Maybe I would suspect when he died, that was his ascension into the clan.
Okay.
All the Ravenos freaking out was the death knell that he was inside all of them. But
I mean, there are a lot of like bloodlines that supposedly popped up somewhere, or like the Salubri don't really have an antediluvian anymore if they are left, and
Well, complicated topic, but probably they do.
yeah.
They do, but they don't. It's one of those situations.
So, getting back, but Jeff, so what? Well, that's, and we're definitely going to talk about it on the line and what you experienced in just a moment. But Jeff, what's taking? Let's kind of approach this from a different angle. Instead of what do you think some of these comments have been or mean by Martin and Tobias and what have you. Let's look at it from a different angle. What would you like to see as changes made in V4?
Thanks, Peter. I did kind of cut Tyler off earlier. I don't want to totally step on his toes. But, okay. I think things are going in a really good direction, honestly, from what I've seen. We all remember the days back when the Sabbat was completely stupid with the Booga Booga, Let's Break the Masquerade everywhere, and increasingly it just kind of became the Camarillah's darker reflection. We all recall when the each of the 4 independent clans were really, really racist in their own way, and they have tried over the years to dial back the racism so that, like, the Assamites aren't just terrorists, and the followers of Set aren't just like Peter Lorre in Casablanca.
Hey, that's like the best part of playing it, though.
Criminals, because Booga Booga gypsies, right? I mean,
Booga Booga gypsies.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So.
Next time I play one of them, that's what I'm going to go up to. So who are you?
Wait.
Look, I'm a gypsy.
What does that make them with Sombras?
I think so. As they were building things out, I think the independent clans kind of formed. The independent clans were arguably the other, big capital T, big capital O, because the Camarilla were essentially the primarily European-centric viewpoint of vampires. The Sabbat was supposed to be the exact opposite of what we are as the Camarilla, and then, okay, let's flesh these other guys out by making them ethnic in a very, like, white perspective kind of way. They were the other vampires.
Wait, I think Jeff just went Tumblr on us.
Huh?
No,
Tumblr?
Never mind. Tumblr.
I'm probably meant to be
I'm sorry, my top.
That's all I can. That keeps going through my head now. That's all I can. I'm a gypsy.
Somebody now needs to make a Malkavian that whenever they see a independent clan member, they just go
and just make some racial epithet. That's and some insert racial epithet here.
And say sorry, I read the wrong book.
Yep. First edition. My bad.
Well, I mean, and they tried to, and though as time went on, they tried to make the writing make more sense. They had someone who knew.
You got to admit, from V20 onward, the racial stereotypes have been extremely dialed back.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And I'm really glad that that's the direction they've gone. They made the followers of Set a little more Gnostic in their outlook. That yes, they're still trying to break apart civilization, but it's for a good cause. They brought in somebody who knew a thing or two about Romani culture to do the revised Ravnos clan book.
Yes.
They said, hey, the Assamites aren't all just assassins who wake up one day and say, okay, am I killing a guy today? Yes, cool, go kill a guy. No. Okay, I'll go to sleep and I'll wake up tomorrow and see if I'm killing a guy today, you know? And the Giovanni have always been gross and disgusting and, okay, whatever. Bad Italian stereotypes, they were the Guidos before Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
With a terrible, unforgivable pun of they have necromancy and they're gangsters. They have underworld connections. Horrible, horrible pun.
And that's the Italian mafia cliche.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
they have underworld connections. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Necromancy, mafia, yeah, ha ha. Anyway. But I see things going in a good direction, so.
Right.
That's
But what? But if there was one thing you could change, what would you like to change to see a change in V4?
honestly the death of the Sabbat. I have hated the Sabbat on 1,000 levels since I saw the beginning.
And
I have friends and loved ones who love the Sabbat, but
have
like,
my
God, I
issues.
hate them. I hate them so
Right,
much.
and I have my issues with Sabbat. And let me just tell you my number one pet peeve with the Sabbat. And it's very hard as a storyteller. And I don't know if any of you guys have experienced this, but when you include the Sabbat in a chronicle, you know, they're not stupid. At least you shouldn't play them stupid. They might come off, you know, earlier editions, sure, they were cannon fodder stupid. But, you know, they're religious fanatics. You know, the way I envision them are the kindred version of the Taliban. That's the kind of way I try to play them.
Well, and that's the way
While
it should be played.
the lower level people on the bottom of the totem pole, yeah, they're not too bright and they're probably not going to survive. But the higher you go on the totem pole, they're actually some fairly educated people. They know the deal, but their religious viewpoints don't overrule their intellect. And you know they're smart enough to know that you know
They're the Catholic Church during your post-Roman Empire period, where
Right.
you have church officials who are not, in some cases, not even close to being religious. You actually had Jews pretending to be Catholic so they could be better leaders and things like that, and be able to move up. But they were still very much Jewish and things like that. They're smart in that they understand that their religion is a farce, but also they still have some semblance of believing in it.
Right. Well, my problem is, and this is what I was kind of getting to, the intelligence thing is a kind of a side note, but my overall thing is they don't care about the masquerade.
Yeah.
Right. So there is no way in
Not-
God's
okay.
green earth that the masquerade would still overall be, when you got entire cities controlled by the Sabbat, there's no way some sort of video or something doesn't get out that is showing vampires are real. There's no way the masquerade would be able to stay the masquerade with the Sabbat in their mindset.
We see this addressed unofficially, and she has admitted this many times, though not in any way, shape, or form that anybody could get payment for it. True Blood. True Blood is actually based on a Sabbat game that the writer played in.
Right. Yep.
It was the bot.
Yeah, it was a Sabbat game.
Oh, wait a minute! I knew it was based. Her writing, the story was based on a masquerade.
Did you not
chronicle,
notice
but
the way?
Sabbat part. I didn't
Did you
realize.
not notice the way that the Elder's pin looks? That's in.
Can't say I recall it offhand.
Okay, it is a combination of the independent clans and the Sabbat Ankh.
Really?
That's been stylized. If you look at it closely, I have it on my Assassin's Creed jacket that I don't have with me. But if you look at the styling of it, it is very similar in the sharpness, etc., to the Sabbat Ankh, but it has the shape of the independent clans Ankh. But she herself, and when I met her, I had my V20 to get Anne Rice to sign it, and she goes, "Can I see that?" She's nothing but a Southern lady sweetheart. But
You're talking about Charlene Harris.
Yeah, Charlene Harris is a sweetheart.
In the games I've seen, which obviously tend to be set more in the UK or Europe, we tend to interpret the Sabbat as written. They're very much a New World problem. The Sabbat in Europe are much more southern civilized, and we run them more as a secret society within the Camarilla. So they're more like a mystery cult or a Gehenna cult within the Camarilla, where you're doing secret forbidden rituals in private.
See, I would like that interpretation to be canon,
Me too.
Right.
Like the U.S.
That
one
makes
tends
more
to be
sense
rednecks.
to me, and that makes more sense of how the Masquerade could stay intact. Because, like I said, you know, according to canon, Detroit is run by the Sabbat, which, if you look at real life Detroit, that wouldn't actually fucking surprise me one bit if the Sabbat if there was a Sabbat vampires running the world. Definitely Detroit would.
Well, and the fact is,
But
the fight for the war for Chicago makes sense for the current one too.
right.
Because
But my point is, there's no way the Sabbat control various cities, and the Masquerade isn't just totally torn to shreds, and the world doesn't realize, oh my God, we're surrounded by fucking vampires. There's just no way that you can realistically. You gotta have a sense of disbelief to accept that their entire city's run by the Sabbat, but the Masquerade is still intact.
If you look at the way that it was handled in the Chicago books, etc., with that they tend to center these ultra-violent cities, etc., which makes it a very easy way for the Camarilla vampires to either sweep it under the rug or go, oh, look, it's just those crazy goth kids, or things like that. But versus, like, the reason why Detroit has control, and you look at it, it's because it's so destroyed, there's this fear in humanity just not to go there. So, yeah, they may know it within Detroit, but because Detroit's just so fucked 2 ways from Sunday, the rest of the world isn't paying attention. So if something comes out of Detroit, it's assumed it's some hooligan or some crazy person without mental health care, not an actual vampire or werewolf.
You can also interpret that, obviously the governments know vampires exist, and they're complicit to avoid a mass panic in the Masquerade, so the governments themselves are covering it up.
Yeah, once again, Chicago by Night, Mayor Daley being a construct.
Yeah.
Or ghoul/construct for the vampires.
I don't just mean
he's a Promethean by canon.
Influencing ghouls on the vampires' part. The mortal governments independently are covering up vampires.
Well,
in the back of V20, wasn't there a little excerpt about how basically to Nathan's point, wasn't there a couple paragraph or a couple pages about certain world governments are aware, but just like he said, they're doing everything they can to keep it on the down low because they just don't want to entice mass panic and hysteria?
Let me look.
I'm pretty sure in the back of V20,
Yeah, there's a segment. I think they talk about how like
there's one guy or a couple guys in the U.S. government who are aware. But
yeah, like they have, it's either NSA or CIA.
Yeah, something like that.
They have like body scanners that can detect vampires.
Yes.
Didn't second edition Vampire have an FBI branch?
Yes.
Style.
Yes.
That knew about vampires. And in the Camarilla Global Chronicle, which there in the UK we had MI7. Which
really?
Yeah.
And they were aware of kindred existence.
Yeah, there'd been an inept drunken vampire 100 years ago who let the secret out, and we had plots where a government minister would openly make a speech about criminals who meet on secret elysiums, and they were openly threatening vampires to sort your act out, stop messing around with the country, please. We had that kind of relationship where the Global National Council of Princes would meet up to discuss the fact that the mortal government's threatening us.
See, I just remember for the Chicago by Night book, them talking about Mayor Daley being, I think he was a Promethean.
Yeah.
And in that, we were all just sitting there laughing because it makes perfect sense. Because if you know the structure of the Chicago government, he was always a sarcastic asshole. But him being a Promethean just made so much sense of him just being, the speeches being from a vampire that's just pissed off at the world.
Yeah. I mean, Cannon House had Queen Victoria as the leader of the technocracy, which, at that stage, the technocracy must be so embedded in government and in the British Empire that link can't have completely disappeared.
Also, I think as they started the story of the Sabbat off in the first publishing of the Sabbat handbook, whatever, they were the Booga Booga Dumb Monsters who were designed to be just fought by whole parties. As they progressively became more popular and players wanted to play them more, so they made them make a little more sense. They kind of tried to dial back the stupid somewhat. They said, well, we believe in a mask. We don't call it the masquerade, but you don't spook the cattle. We don't believe in... there are some things you kind of do just to make, because it makes sense. Says this about, we just don't call it a masquerade or the traditions and things. And I don't know. It was as they wrote more content for this bot, they tried to make them make more sense over time. Masquerade in particular, though, I don't know. Sorry, jump back to
but that was my biggest point with the Sabbat, and you all make very good counterpoints to my concerns. But you know, realistically, though. You know, yeah, you might have government mechanisms in place trying to cover it up. You might have the local Camarilla influence, you know, in adjacent cities and areas covering it up and all this. But, I mean, decades and decades and decades of this going on, something's going to get out. I mean, you can't, you can't have 100% success rate at covering this up.
The Sabbat must enforce a kind of masquerade of their own.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And I do kind of, and when I run my Chronicle, I you know, the way I see the Sabbat is they're pretty fast. They're obviously very fast and loose with that, but they're very harsh with like who was it? Jeff was saying, you know, you don't rattle the cattle. You know, it's fun. You know, you wanna. You want to suck them dry, you want to whatever, that's fine. But if you end up on the nightly fucking news, you thought it was hard, becoming, getting buried alive and becoming a shovelhead. You thought that was difficult? Wait until you can see. Wait till freaking we start flesh crafting you into a freaking zombie. So.
Granted,
that's the kind of way I play them, where, like you said, they don't call it the masquerade, they don't follow necessarily the traditions, but there has to be some level of conduct to prevent to prevent going over that line where it's a point of no return.
It was also easier for the Sabbat 20 years ago when we didn't all have mobile phones with cameras in our pockets.
Exactly.
I can imagine the masquerade for them works then because they just black op, we kill the witnesses or intimidate them, and that's fine. You're right. It's a lot harder now.
And the funny thing is, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, the PC game, in the opening intro, Smiling Jack actually says that to you. He goes, the reason you didn't know any of this before is because, we kind of live by this code. And, in the age of cell phone cameras, fuck-ups aren't tolerated.
Well, and remember in the animated trailer for World of Darkness Online, they're all around us.
Yeah. Yep.
So, Souls Discarded, Flesh Made Immortal.
I've watched that trailer hundreds of times.
Yes. So, let's not go there. I'll get depressed.
Yeah, I still think I'm going to throw some. So we were discussing about. I was talking with the former art director on World of Darkness Online when they were showing all the preview stuff for Paradox, talking about White Wolf, and he just sat there watching and went, "That's mine."
Yes. Oh yeah, he's we're still friends on Twitter. In fact,
I love Thomas. He's over at High Res now. Yeah, he's over at High Res.
Yeah, he's working on that castle game, tower game.
He's on
the mythology one.
Smite. It's not a tower game; it's a MOBA.
I play Smite.
He's on Smite, and he's also on Smite and Paladins.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if he's on the other stuff too. He needs to go sleep. I love Thomas.
I love him. He's very cool.
He really likes Scotch. If you ever run into him.
Good to know.
Like really like Scotch. Whenever
all right.
yeah.
So anything else? Anyone has any last words about V20? Anything else anyone want to bring up, discuss? V20, V4, sorry.
Yes, the other hot gossip which I've picked up
Oh, hot gossip.
Yeah,
This is what I like. This is what we
Okay,
love. So hot gossip is Michelle's working on the new Vampire MMO.
No, don't even start rumors.
That is exclusive.
Don't even start rumors. We get enough shit as is.
Okay. No.
No, we actually got lectured about that.
I'm sorry, people.
This is from a Talk Martin game.
Sorry, higher ups. My bad.
Okay. So Martin was in a meeting with CCP at the time, and they were trying to think. So in this new Vampire MMO that we're making at the time, what do players actually do? And the MMO guys would go, so well, maybe they could beat up some back ghouls for XP, or maybe they could gather artifacts and level up. And Martin said, no. What do vampires do every night? They hunt. They feed.
Blood.
That should be the core of the game, and that's an idea that he's keeping. And in short, you are what you eat. So you develop disciplines based on the types of mortals that you're regularly feeding on. And so the training montage with your sire, as he calls it, will go. And instead, if you want to learn Auspex, you have to keep going and feed on people who are curious and alert, for example. This was implemented in a slightly different way in End of the Line, and in that, to use your discipline, you had to have fed on an appropriate type of mortal within the last 2 hours. It was a 6-hour lark. And this apparently is going to be how character development and learning disciplines will work in the future. You are what you eat. I have not seen the full table, so there's a question of if you want to learn thaumaturgy, or how does that work. You can see one or two hints at this in the material, in the old material. In Dark Ages, kindred with potents think they have to feed regularly on strong animals to keep it. That's not actually true, but they believe that. It looks like that was going to be a big element now of Vampire going forwards, and more of a focus on planning your feeding, your hunting.
I think that's.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be completely honest. Tyler, what do you think about that?
I will reserve judgment until I play it, but I don't like that too much. That doesn't sound too appealing. They might do a good job implementing it, but.
What about you, Jeff? What's your thoughts on that mechanic?
That sounds awesome. I recall the leaked document where a huge chunk of the crafting system involved you picking up on the trail of people who have certain characteristics that you want to emulate. I will go hunt down people who are corrupt. I'll go hunt down people who are compassionate, and I like that idea a lot. I do wonder to what extent that's going to involve players engaging with each other. Anybody who read that leaked document may recall the really boring-sounding seduce button, yawn, but
you mean press E to seduce? That one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Press E to seduce. Yes.
Yeah.
Also remember that was an alpha.
I know. We're being facetious, Michelle. I know.
No, I know. Just you know what I went through.
It's a little here that based on this alpha thing we saw, and based on this rumor we're hearing, between those two, I think that sounds cool.
Okay.
Personally,
it's a little like in Wraith. There's a mechanic to feed on. As they feed emotions, you have passions you feed upon, which are both your explicit passion, but also the general emotion types. You'll look for mortals with that general emotion to feed on, and that's already in Wraith. So you can see that this is sort of that mechanic sliding across the vampire.
There was also a history of that. If you go back to Final Fantasy XI, when you were crafting certain items, you would go into the Promethean missions and hunt specific memories. These were attached to the heroes if you follow the plot line. So you would look memories of wrath, memories of anger, memories of anguish, and collect them to give to kind of a bard character that would then be able to craft you this legendary piece of armor based on those memories. So there's kind of a history of that in gaming.
To me, it does sound like it encourages keeping a blood doll, keeping a good herd with the stuff you want. It also makes
It also
feeding
goes
them-
with. It also goes.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say I don't know how much I'm allowed to speak on this because of stuff and things, but like it also encourages players to be more selective and allows for players that have a tendency to min-max have a more difficulty to do that, along with making it a more interesting scenario to get to that min-max. And one of the greatest problems in things like MMOs, etc., is how do you encourage in a game where role-playing and storytelling is the big portion of it, how do you encourage someone who min-maxes their entire fucking character because they're used to playing something like D&D and playing the legendary hero, where the legendary hero is just a giant min-max, like when you look at things like Homer's Odyssey, etc. How do you encourage that style of player to role-play so that it does not ruin the experience for other players while still giving them the satisfaction of min-maxing? It is an effective means of forcing that style of player to be kind of tricked into role-playing to still satisfy that utter need to min-max.
I'm also thinking in a Camarilla context, it makes negotiating for access to feeding grounds a lot more important, because if the prince says you can feed in the slums, but you want to go and feed all the clever people at the university so you can up your whatever discipline that relates to, like maybe thaumaturgy, that's obviously going to be more interesting. Does that push you to do illegal feeding and risk getting caught, or does that push you to start doing deals at court? As more LARP player, I am slightly concerned that if that's how discipline gaming works, you take away all of the cross-CAD tuition mechanics which are part of the LARP. And often in LARP, the currency is not boons, because the boon system doesn't work very well. It's, will you teach me a discipline? And then that becomes the trading commodity. And then the new BNS rules have all this downtime mechanics about where you can get people to spend their downtime action training you in a discipline. If that goes, you've lost a lot of interaction and reason for vampires to interact with each other.
Well, at the same time, though, it's BNS does handle their stuff separately currently, so it could be that that changes too. Downtime actions for BNS, the big thing with that has to do with the American side, where so much freaking fighting and bullshit happens in downtime because they won't do it face to face. That's why you have those huge sections of downtime actions, is because I don't play BNS anymore because A, I don't have time, B, I never fucking had time for downtime actions. C, I play a fucking follower of set. If I have to do everything in downtime actions to gain control of a city, fuck that shit. I have to be able to be there face to face so I can trick them with emotions. But because you're dealing with antisocial nerds, to be honest, I'm not going to sugarcoat it there, they find it easier to be a dick online than in person. Shut up, you know it's true, Peter.
Do you see me disputing? I'm just enjoying all the heat that you're going to be getting. This is
Dude,
awesome.
no, they can. The thing is, it's true though. It's because I see the outcomes now of what happens with some of these fights. I see what happens. You see all the power gaming, etc., online. I would never go online and do it because it's A, too much time, B, I don't want to fight with somebody over the internet. I get enough of that on my day-to-day basis. When I want to fight with someone, I want to be in-game, in-character, and have an outcome to which I feel is beneficial to my character, either in character growth and I fail a check. Man, I love it when I fail a check against a fucking Tremere because then it's, oh crap, I gotta learn a lesson from this.
Yep.
But you have players that get so attached to their characters that they don't know when to let them die. But versus downtime actions, they can sit there and research every little bit of the thing at a time before they make their response because it's not technically in real time. And because of that, they're power gaming situations versus when you're having a LARP. The whole thing is interaction. You're in the character, in the moment, making those interactions. I hate downtime actions. I understand their purpose within a game, but I hate them. I absolutely hate them. And it is literally because you start breaking down the game and breaking the fourth wall because there is no way to control that researching portion that they would not be able to do in the heat of the moment during a LARP. I like LARPs where they end when the game ends. And you come back the next week and you start again. And the reason being is because then my character's story is coherent and isn't interrupted by the fact that there's some idiot, and I really do mean idiot, that's sitting there doing all this shit ton of research before they respond to a post. Like, it annoys me because it's like your character would not know that in that second. And if they didn't know that,
metagaming sucks. Let's just be
metagaming
honest.
fucking sucks.
Yes.
Especially in LARP.
You go, girl. You go.
And yeah, there are games where it is appropriate, like, for example, Pathfinder, when you're playing as that specific character and you need to look up what their specific knowledge is. In games like Vampire, do your research beforehand. I had a character that had Technology 1 just so I could use my phone to have the notes that I, as a human, would not be able to memorize there. But there were things that she should know, but because my own ability as a human is limited, I would not be able to, but because I had an excuse in character to carry around a phone, I also had an excuse to have things appear to be memorized when really I had it in OneNote. Things like that. But versus, like, okay, what does your character know? And, like, fidgeting rules so that your character will know something. Like, there was a game I played for, it wasn't a By Night Studios one, but the dude retconned his own death 6 times. I had it, and rolled an Assamite, and beat his ass to death because he was a Tremere.
Hey, first of all, no, you would never be able to beat a Tremere.
You would be able to beat a Tremere if you teamed up with 2 Giovanni as an Assamite and he had a price on his head as a Lion of Israel.
Back on topic?
Yeah. We actually sat down and jumped through. It ended up with me jumping through because one of the other Giovanni we tricked into getting a thing with the prince, because the guy also played the prince. Ended up jumping through a portal from the spirit, or to that weird spirit portal thing, and beating him to death with the silver thigh bone ability that they have. It took us 6 months and 3 people to come up with the shit, and a wraith. But yeah, that's how we ended up killing him.
So yeah. As was said about 4/3, so my hope would be that they could add in this interesting feeding character growth mechanic, but they also keep the requirements to have a tuition in discipline or to drink blood of other clans to learn discipline. So they have both. It's not a replacement, because I think exchanging tuition is a valid commodity, and it gives characters something to negotiate with.
My biggest issue with that sort of essence blood system would be if it was time to give you a feed recently before using a discipline, because I don't have all that much time anymore to play games. So if I only have time to feed, then that might not be too fun for me. But if they have it in some sort of other pool system or resource system where, yeah, you have to maybe keep different, like Wraith blood or 3-4 different types of blood to manage, maybe a handful of different disciplines, then that's okay. You occasionally have to top off whatever you're using more to you get low on, then hunt for that specific type. I could live with that, but if it's gonna expire after 2 hours or something, I probably wouldn't have time to play the game.
As I say, end of the line, they had this mechanic where you had to feed within 2 hours, but that doesn't mean go off game. That means actually go and feed off someone for real.
Right. I mean, obviously, it's not. Okay. It's not the same, it's going to be that way.
I get the sense in the main game, it's going to be more about character growth and development and where do you put your next discipline not actual discipline use.
Okay. So maybe if you want to level up your Ausbucks, you've got to kind of get enough points of blood that have those kinds of qualities. Or you can't purchase
curious about that, people. But of course, in some cases, I think you could make people in the right mental state. Like if you need blood from somebody who's afraid, obviously you can make.
Make them afraid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once they elaborate on that and explain it some and develop it some, I think I could get behind that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting if it forces you to particular feeding styles as well.
Right.
Yeah, the Casanova approach versus the Stalker, the Dark Alleyway approach versus whatever.
The grabbing and be like, "Boo! Be afraid! Look at me."
So let's just move on here. I mean, we could spend all day hypothesizing with what's going on with V4, but we'll definitely revisit this when we get a little bit more information, and we have a little bit more of a grounded approach to what we can say here. moving on, since again this is a great segue. Let's talk about the what's going on with the LARP and end of the line. Now, Nathan, you were at the end of the line event.
Yeah,
You've already talked about it a little bit, but kind of give us the overall impression. When you got there, how was it set up? What was new for you since you are an experienced LARPer? What was new? What was different? What caught your eye? Give us a basic a synopsis.
Okay, so we got the characters about a week before, which was later than planned. They were clearly a bit rushed, but still. And so we had a week then to look up the people we had connections to and pre-game discuss how we're going to play this relation. So I think we all had 2 groups that we were in. So I was playing a Torador Arax Ghoul. So I was in a family group, which was my boss and her other related minions. And then I was in Ghouls Anonymous, which was the Ghouls Servant Network, who also had, this Arax thing sounds good, can we have some freedom as well, please, lead-ins. And then I had 3 other relations to play on. So we turned up. It was the whole time scale was very tight. It was turn up at 5:30, hour or so of pre-game chat, start the game, finish at midnight. So it was not a long. It felt like not a long game. The location we was on Underground Rave. The game started with 15 minutes of dancing, and what that does is actually a very good way to get the character, and it very quickly lowers everyone's inhibitions. Once you've been grinding on a rave dance floor for 15 minutes, you're suddenly okay with doing the other things with these people. And as you think about
I see. That makes psychologically that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and equally, if you could grind for 50 minutes on the dance floor, grinding for half a minute to have pretend LARP sex is actually the same.
And one might say not as fulfilling.
So yeah, that worked well. What else to say? So personally, I had a lot of really great intrigue with my messed up jealousy, blood bonding family dynamic. So there was the masquerade. They did try to keep it for real. So off game, we didn't know who the vampires were, and so that people being let up and fed upon. They didn't keep the masquerade particularly well. These were a lot of irresponsible anarchs, and not if they were Sabat, we'd call them shovelheads, but they were anarchs, not Sabat. So they were feeding not terribly discreetly, but you can imagine how it works because you see someone necking someone else in an underground rave. You don't really think vampire. You think they're either doing some weird, sexy, kinky play. And even if you do, you think, okay, they're blood fetishists. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all been to clubs.
Yeah.
I mean, throw that out there. I mean, I've had sex on the dance floor, so a little necking.
Yeah.
That's like that. That's like, oh yeah, whatever, and you just keep on walking. You don't even people making out at a club or necking or feeling each other up or whatever. Yeah. That's just whatever. That's just par for the course when you're in a club.
That said, at the start of the LARP, most vampires didn't even know each other. By the end of the LARP, most of the vampires were in a big meeting together. I know I was guarding the door. So the masquerade, it wasn't sustainable at the level it started at. The vampires got to know each other for the most part. So you can imagine if they met again the next month, obviously that was a one-off game, but if they had, then the characters would know each other at the very least. So the situation they started out was not sustainable, if that makes sense.
No, I think it does. I think we all understand where you're coming from on that level.
Yeah. So let's see. So what was I to say? So characters had. So do you want to hear about mechanics? Tell me what you want to hear about.
Well, I believe it was Martin who said before the event that they were test running some new game mechanics, some new concepts, potentially for future LARP events and potentially for V4. So we've already talked about you got to the way your disciplines work potentially is you got to get blood from someone who has a similar attribute, and that's how you get your disciplines. We've already talked about that. Was there anything else that stuck out you that said, you know what, this might be a test run for something for V4?
Okay, well, listen, combat was extremely minimal, so Cat had a number from 0 to 5, and that included, I was a ghoul, I had 3, which includes my potents, and if we had a fight, we just compare numbers and then act it out. The bulk of the system was that if you were in a mob challenge, you just add all your numbers together, which actually means that it's quite easy to take down a vampire with 2 or 3 people. And I did hear a story that what happened was one of the vampires was giving their blood away too freely to the mortals, and the mortals went, "Oh, this is a new drug. We really like this. We want more." And they end up mobbing the guy and killing him for his blood.
Wow.
But then you can imagine that's the sort of thing that could happen to a really irresponsible fledgling.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Michelle, do you still do LARP?
I have not in a long time because combination of job hunt and then kind of this job. And then no, I used to do it a lot more, and I did it a lot in Chicago, which I will also.
But I mean, you've been around the block. That's really what I was getting. Yeah, I mean, you've
multiple times in multiple situations with multiple different games, not just
Vampire.
Not just Vampire.
Right,
I also did
right.
medieval stuff too.
And what about you, Jeff? What's any LARP experience?
Jeff.
I think Jeff muted himself. Jeff's muted. Jeff. Mute?
No, I think he's lagging.
Oh, is he lagging?
Hey, y'all.
There we go.
Yeah, I have done like the Binance Studios thing recently. I'm also rebuilding a version of it from the social mechanics up. So, hey Martin, if you're watching this, please check your email. But shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Okay. Well,
dun dun dun.
Any kind of social mechanics, everything was what it was. We had some disciplinary rules, so it was. You make eye contact with someone, you touch the back of their neck, you look them in the eye and say, "You really, really effect," and then the person responds. There's no stat comparison, there's no resistance. So I know that my vampire overlord, she could do, "You really, really love me," and the standard duration is 10 minutes. I was guarding the door, trying to look imposing, and someone walked up to me, and they just had that slightly slow, very confident stride, looked me in the eye, they slowly put their hand around, and I just couldn't even respond, but they went, "You really, really want to move out the way." And I just did, of course, it just felt, but it wasn't me as a player deciding to, it just felt slightly hypnotic and just flow naturally.
Right.
So that really worked, in that sense. They only had the four clans there. I think they had, was it Ventru, Bruja, Toreador, Malkavians? I think they had one Malkavian and one Ventru. So they only had sort of the common disciplines, and they're all very low level. They did have Obfuscate, which was the usual hand symbol, and I know my Toreador had the power that she could ignore that. And that no level comparison. That was it. So information stuff like all specs, you really, really want to tell me what you are. Would be
okay. Interesting.
For example.
So, with with a bunch of LARPers, yourself included here, what do you think that this is the future of LARP? Do you think the game mechanics that was employed here is going, is going to spread, I get, for lack of a better word?
Let's see. Well, we know there's the big Convention of Thorns game at Halloween in a Polish castle with 175 players. That is sold out. And we've seen some of their mechanics. They also use the same code word, you really, really effect. That will also have all the clans have a lot more powers and won't be quite the same, but it will be influenced by it. I mean, this approach has been around the Nordic scene for a while. 10 years ago, at my first Nordic LARP, we had, for magic use, we had a code word. So if I say Veritas, I then describe the effect. So it means only the magic user has to know what they could do and the effects. And everyone else, it's their job to communicate to the victim what the effect is. So that you don't have to learn the whole list of powers. Because often in bad fancy LARPs, I might go, Firebolt, and you have to know the spell list to know how much damage that does.
Right.
In this process, only the magic user has to understand what they can do and convey it. And
So
often,
but getting back to my point though, do you think this is the future of LARP, for Vampire LARP I should say? Do you think this is what's these very it sounds very bare bones mechanics. It sounds like you can't get much bare bones without going to freeform.
Sure. It's quite heavy mechanics by Nordic LARP standards actually.
Really?
Yeah.
By North American, I think all the other people here on the panel are.
Peter, you got to remember, in the U.S., even when you look at outside of Vampire the Masquerade, etc., you're looking at much more heavy mechanic-based LARP.
Yeah, I've LARPed in the US, so yeah.
Yeah, I hate it personally, but that's just because I always do story stuff.
Okay. The other big change, I think, was that most vampire LARPs are playing Elysium, playing court politics. They're playing what's really the ancilla level. This was playing the absolute fledgling neonate level, and it was actually doing feeding, actually doing vampires interacting with humans, which often doesn't happen in Vampire LARP. So it's a different level. I would certainly like there to be more LARP at this level, as well as LARPs at the court intrigue and ancilla level. And obviously we know there's going to be the Convention of Thorns, which is a completely different power level. And there's also the big Berlin by Night, or Enlightenment in Blood it's called, in 2017, which will have a whole range of different levels and 4 White Wolf games with 475 players across the whole city, and etc. etc. So yes, I think this has shown this idea does work, and yes, I'm sure more people will do some LARPs like this. The challenge, of course, is you have to be able to write interesting characters for the people playing ghouls, playing blood dolls, playing mortals who don't know anything. They have to have an interesting, fun game as well. And that takes a certain level of writing skill that not all LARP organisers have.
Well, there's also an issue that comes down to regional issues, and the problem with a LARP style like that in the US comes down to the thing I was talking about earlier with the metagamers. US style, though personally I prefer the European style of LARP because it gives you that freedom to create characters and use mechanics in interesting ways. If you also look at the difference of what style of games Europeans like to play versus the style of games that Americans like to play, there's a reason why World of Warcraft is the way it is, and it reflects also in the way we LARP, even in my society, etc. You see a lot of these people playing as not only metagamers, but the reason why it's mechanics heavy is because you have to rein them in. Giving them the freedom to do things like that leads to things like them using powers in ridiculous ways, and when you argue with them, there's not a set rule to bring them back to say, hey, you're wrong, and you're making it unfun for everyone else.
It should be noted, though, that this was, of course, a one-off game. It's not a campaign. And yes, I think their focus is going to be on these one-off games, which, yeah, they might be the shared meta world, and there might be some vague meta plot references. Ultimately, they're one-off games. You get given a character, you play the character just for this game.
And that's a very different environment than the campaigns or the society games.
Yeah, and yeah, So, I mean, they are saying that there may be games where you could permanently influence the meta plot. This will be true in Berlin, where what the characters do may change the official canon world. But we'll see.
So Jeff, as a LARPer from North America, what's your take and your perspective on this style of LARP?
It sounds awesome. I think it's also, though, a fundamentally different experience. That the North American LARPs are kind of designed to let you build your own character and then have a continuous storyline that's where traditionally a storyteller is sort of raining plot down on you that you as a group need to figure out how to address, whereas the Nordic LARP experience, as I've gathered it, seems more like an experiential theater experiment where they don't really care where the storyline goes, because I've seen they usually tend to be one-shots, whether they involve vampires or usually not. It's more like, here's what it's like to be this character in this one very specific experience, where they tend to seem to involve a whole lot more logistics of building all these characters, building an environment. It's interactive theater versus being a thing that kind of sort of evolved out of tabletop dressed up. And insert another shameless plug here for this ridiculous experiment I'm running in Seattle that we'll probably discuss at some point in the future. Spoiler! We have a self-generating social political system, and very little Rochambeau, and trait for comparisons. We'll discuss that later. And I gotta fly. Sorry, folks.
The impression I get from speaking to people here is that whilst they will still support the existence of MET as a system, there will not be any one official live rule set. It will be a custom rule sets for each game. This rule set worked in this game in this context. There's a different rule set being used in the Polish Castle. There's a different rule set in Berlin. There'll be a different rule set in any other game. If you're doing a game about elders, you're going to face different kind of rules to if you're doing feeding a nightclub game.
Tyler, what's your thoughts?
Well, I've only played tabletop, so I'm very inexperienced.
You're in my boat.
Yeah.
It sounds interesting, though. I mean, even from a tabletop perspective, it does sound quite fascinating.
I'm going to say the Vampire the Masquerade is going to be my first LARP in about a year, so.
Yeah, I think both styles, the campaign style and the one-shots, I think they definitely have their pros and their cons. The closest thing I've ever done was just I've done some like Boffer sword events where a bunch of people got together with the fake swords just to fight, but that's no story or role playing.
That's Tuesday here.
All right. Anything else, Nathan, that seems relevant to discuss about your experiences?
What else to say about it? Yeah, so they had a new recipe for fake blood. For people who are into these kind of special effects, fake blood is a real problem because any type of fake blood normally looks good also stains. And they did assure me that this type of blood, they said what's in it, they didn't say the balance. That is washable, and also the other problem with use of fake blood, of course, is you can't use nice locations if you're fake blood because you don't want to risk staining the carpet, which was an issue in this underground rave. Obviously, as a ghoul, I didn't buy it anymore. I did get fed once. The fake blood tasted weird but sort of nice. But the problem with it is that even after you licked it all off, it still felt sticky.
Oh, they used the cornstarch recipe.
Yeah.
Or not corn syrup recipe. So you use carob syrup and it doesn't stain, but it gets over everything.
Yeah. So I then got told, of course, to clean it by my vampire. with my tongue, and was then sort of belching and throwing up because that was making me feel sick. The blood was fine.
It's pure sugar. It's pure sugar.
I had to tap out at that point because that was not.
I gotta tap.
So
tap out. Not from the gameplay. Never tap out the fake blood. The fake blood is killing me. I'm out.
So okay. There's like 4 different types of fake blood, and I actually hate the Caro syrup stuff because I would rather have to scrub with rubbing alcohol. So backstory, I used to work and make costumes for TV and film. If you saw this little show called Constantine, I did shit for it.
Sweet.
What?
I love that show.
Yeah.
I was really upset when it got
You
canceled.
never said that.
I don't talk about it much because it wasn't like my thing. I stumbled into that job. I started out as
Constantine, the TV series.
Yeah.
You made costumes.
Yeah, I actually have the one of the amulets of Pazuzu. I don't have it with me. It's back in Atlanta. But we did 3D printed props. We did costume stuff for it. If you saw, all the props were done by this company called Hex Mortis, and we did 3D printing on it.
Let me just say, this is why I get the best fucking people on the show. But you're welcome. Okay, go ahead.
So there's 4 different types of basically fake blood. You can get it pre-made, and that stuff does stain slightly, but if you use 99% rubbing alcohol, which is available usually in most sets because it's special effects artists, it gets it out really easily. I think that's what they use for the Met book photo shoot. I'd have to ask Haley. The makeup artist on like the Nosferatu, etc. for the Met book is my friend Haley. And that's all she does is horror makeup special effects. The Caro syrup stuff, the problem is, yes, it's easier to get out staining, but it leaves a sticky residue because it's literally just corn syrup. You can avoid it to get it off by using those, but this is true for all fake blood. The easiest way to get that stuff out is those Mr. Clean magic erasers. It takes everything out. And most of the time without removing carpet color, etc.
Good to know.
So, yeah, that's fun fake blood stuff. Just use a Mr. Clean magic eraser.
Fake blood stuff.
There are so many dumb tricks.
Yeah. But getting back on topic, was there, for those other upcoming LARP events, Nathan, was there anything else you wanted to mention about those, or did we pretty much cover it?
Wizard Swords has its own website that's sold out, so I'll let this website speak for itself. What I can say about the Berlin event, sometime next year, there's going to be a big convention, and part of that there'll be an official Enlightenment in Blood is the working title. They might have a basic website up, but I don't think there's much on there yet. 475 players, and they're going to cover all 4 of the major White Wolf games. So that's Vampire, Werewolf, Mage, and Changeling. The intention is they're going to write it in a modular way, so there'll be 14 or 15 different games happening simultaneously across Berlin, and characters can move between them. So you'll have the Changelings doing their fairy court, and maybe a few of the right type of mages will visit the fairy court, and so on, played out. So that sounds very promising. I mean, again, White Wolf are the licensee, so it's very different people and different teams with different writing styles doing these different LARPs. So the Convention of Thorns is being done by the same Danish and Polish guys who do College of Wizardry, the big Harry Potter style LARP there. Enlightenment in Blood is being run by Bjark, who was involved with End of the Line and was also involved with the Inside Hamlet LARP, which you might have heard about. It was a 100-player 1930s Hamlet LARP in Castle Elsinore in Denmark last year, which I was at. So I have that's the one I'm personally more interested in, the one I'll be following. So I would advise people to keep an eye on that. Again, that will all be pre-written characters. Even though that is, as you can imagine, a huge challenge of writing 475 characters. My joke to him was that he has to write 1 a day for the next year and a half to do it in time.
All right. Sounds good. So let's move on to our final topic. Grand Masquerade 2016.
Woohoo!
Woo! They released just for anyone watching this, both they released the first block of rooms that sold out within a day. They released the second block of rooms, and apparently that sold out the day they announced that as well. So there's no rooms at the host hotel anymore, but there are. But I will, from personal experience, I will tell you there are plenty of nice places within like a block or two radius that you can definitely get your own rooms and for not that expensive at all. Like anywhere from 99 to around $120 a night. So very affordable, very affordable. So that said, we've all seen the list of events, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yes. There's still some more, apparently some more in development.
There are.
Yeah, but what we've seen so far, as someone who went to 2011, while they haven't produced the panels yet, which are big for me, that's let me just put this in perspective. Me probably not going to do much LARP because I'm not really a LARPer. I'm there for the panels. I'm there for potentially if they do some tabletop. Vampire tabletop games, I'll probably get involved with that. And I might walk in a LARP as a guest just for the experience. But for the most part, I'm the LARP is just kind of a throwaway to me. So I'm there for the panels, any kind of announcements like that, and tabletop, and just to meet new, hopefully make some new friends along the way. That's really my goals of going there. As a non-LARPer, I'm going to tell you right now, as a non-LARPer, it seems like 2/3, at least what's been announced so far, is just moot to me.
Well, so I can say a little bit, just because I know more than I should, and there's things that I can't talk about. There's going to be plenty for non-LARPers and non-tabletoppers also, just fans of the IP, etc. Yeah, I can't say much more than that because I have things that I signed.
No, that's fine.
But
you understand what I'm saying. From their initial release, they seem very LARP heavy, which is fine. If you're into LARP, then you're gonna have a fucking awesome time.
Right.
But for people like me and Tyler, we'd be like,
Let's put it this way. I'm bringing several coworkers that are definitely not LARPers, and they're excited. We know more than we should.
Are you bringing Tim Kaine?
No, but Tom Dowd might show up.
Oh my! Yes! Yes!
He is definitely coming to Midwinter, though. Or Tom is.
I'm like, listen. I don't know. Okay, this is what baffles me. I got to go on a rant here. This is what baffles me. I see all these people on Facebook, social media, and Twitter, and all. Oh, I'm going to Midwinter. I'm going to PAX. I'm going here, this convention. I'm going to this con. And I'm like, first of all, how do you fucking have a job? Because you seem to be like on the road every 4 weeks. And two, if you don't have a job, how are you paying? I don't understand how these people go to these cons.
So I get
whatever job you have, I want it so I can go to every one of these fucking cons.
We actually,
please.
Actually, this touches on a good point. That this is the big Atlantic difference. Americans, correct me if I'm wrong, get like 10 days of annual holiday. And in the UK we get 20 minimum. In the Nordic lands they get 30, and that's one reason why Europe can have these long.
I'm moving to fucking Sweden. That's all I know. That's all I know.
There's one reason why Scandinavians can have these week-long LARPs is they can take the time off.
So as game devs, we do have a more lenient vacation schedule, and for conventions like Obsidian goes to specific conventions. You can volunteer to be, or like you can fight with your team who gets to go. Like I'm basically said, I do Gen Con. this year so I could go hang out with friends. I can't do PAX Prime because that's when Grand Masquerade is this year, when I thought they were separate, which made me sad. But we can do it, like, for us, E3 is literally around the corner, so we can just take the day off and go to it. It's for Tom, he lives in Chicago, so Midwinter is a no-brainer. And this year John Wick is coming to Midwinter, Seven Seas. So it's old buddies type thing. And Tom's never made it to Grand Masquerade, but since it's kind of not a stupid time this year, I was like, hey, you gonna come, dude? You gonna come? It's the 25th anniversary,
Please,
so he might actually show up.
Tell him his internet stalker wants to see him at Grand Masquerade, please.
Yeah, he still thinks that's weird.
I am aware.
I rule.
I'm aware there's going to be an end of the line rerun at Grand Masquerade.
Just so you know, Nathan, because you don't have the backstory. I'm, as you might have gotten the impression, I'm huge into Shadowrun. Tom Dowd was one of the primary creators of it, so he's like my fucking hero, basically.
And Tom Dowd was was the head of department and one of my professors and one of my good friends in college.
So I vicariously am friends with Tom Dowd through Michelle, and I vicariously live through her to get to him.
Peter has stalked Tom to the point where he now is like, wait, is that the guy who like creeps on me?
Yes, he knows me. I have succeeded as a stalker. You
want me to make it feel worse? They moved Tim Kaine to 2 doors down from me.
And I loved him. He's my second internet crush. Well, no. Okay, Downey's my first internet crush. Then it goes Tom Dowd. Then it goes Tim Kaine, because Tim Kaine is he created fucking Fallout. He's a fucking genius. So,
and he's super sweet. I got him a half-pound box of chocolate.
And Michelle gives me all the inside info of all these people.
No!
So she gives me all the inside info, so I know what they like. So when I see them, I'm going to have the proper gifts.
Tim Kaine has a chocolate blog. That is well known. He has, I think 3,000 entries in this blog.
That's awesome. He loves chocolate.
He loves chocolate. I got him a half-pound box of Frangos, and he goes,
I love chocolate,
let me just say, for the record, I am not obsessed with Tim Kaine. I have respect for him. I would love to meet him and talk shop with him. But I am not obsessed with Tim Kaine.
Well, if you're in LA, just...
Tom Dowd, however...
Like I said, he'll be at Midwinter, guaranteed.
Well, my point is...
maybe you should go up to Midwinter.
I can't... There's no way like I said, I don't understand how these people go to every one of these... And people half my age. It's like, how the fuck are you affording this?
Parents. Well, in my case, it's I'm only doing Grand Masquerade, and then...
Well, you don't count because your job basically sends you to half these cons by default.
Well, Grand Masquerade, though, I don't it's my one planned vacation.
Right. Well, that's an exception. But I'm saying, generally speaking, on the company dime, you get to go to half these places.
See, here's the thing: is that there's kind of that impression, but a lot of them they're not. So usually, last year, they only sent 2 people from the team. This year, since we're releasing, they might send more. But the two leads don't want to do the con circuit again. So, I can volunteer for certain conventions. But, a lot of times, unless you're a community manager or a PR person, you really don't get that.
I want to be an Obsidian community manager.
I don't think we're hiring for one right now. But
I'm being facetious.
But they get to go bounce around, etc. I mean, that's how Shane went to all the conventions, was because he was our PR person. He'd go bounce around that way.
I know.
But then you'd also have
I was very jealous of him because
get all the pictures.
It's like the guy. His job was to be on fucking vacation every other week. It pissed me off. Pissed me the fuck off, this guy. He's taking pictures at the pool, taking pictures of fruity, colorful drinks, taking pictures in the fucking water. I'm oh my God, I want this fucking guy's job.
You've seen my pictures. On Sundays, we'd go out to the beach and cook dinner.
Yes. I can't yell at you because you're nice and you're my friend. But I mean, Shane's my friend too. But he's a guy, and he probably deserves me yelling at him over that. So.
You just want his job. But no, it's like so.
I want his fucking travel schedule. Absolutely.
It's one of those things that it's like, no, I don't have to work weekends, but I come in and I work on the game. I make sure things are up to date. Like a lot of times I come in and do documentation because I don't have time during the week. Like and we always have people in here every day, and then at night, like we were watching Rick and Morty in the lounge a couple of days ago. It's fun being in games because you like the people you work with. Like they're
absolutely.
Yeah.
But getting back to the Grand Masquerade though.
Yes.
Nathan, are you going to the Grand Masquerade, Nathan?
Probably not. It's a bit too far, a bit too expensive, and I'm a poor PhD student at the moment.
Thank you in my boat. Like I gotta it's just to get to the Grand Masquerade is a challenge. I love these kids who are like 25 who and for the record, I don't mean to digress again, but for the record, obviously I know what I need to do. I need to become a professional fucking cosplay person. Because these girls who do professional cosplay, it's like every week, I'm going to be at this con, I'm going to be at that con, and they're getting paid to do. It's like, oh my god,
no, they're not.
Michelle, put me in a fucking corset and send me out there because I'll
work like that. No. Trust me, it doesn't work like that. Like so. Yes, you have one or two people like Yayaha and Jessica Geary, but if you've noticed, Jessica Geary's schedule has gone down. Some of them are invited and do get paid to go, but very few of them actually are. If you notice, it's the same people. They have actual, fucking reps. They actually have 8 booking agents and things like that. I don't want to say more just because it's iffy to talk about it, but there's a lot more bullshit that goes down behind the scenes with that stuff. And if I had not worked in costuming, I would not know about it. And let's just put it this way, there's a reason I hate Heroes of Cosplay with a burning fucking passion.
How many
I am aware from being on the End of the Line secret players group that 1 or 2 people who did play End of the Line in Europe are planning to go over there. They told me their plan is to go over there, have a week or 2 week holiday, and do the lap again, and possibly even not bother with the rest of the convention. So some people are planning to go and play it again. It won't be the same game because it was localized. So in the previous run, we were all Finnish characters, and therefore couldn't do small talk and things. And obviously, it will be localized to New Orleans for the rerun. And I'm sure that what the location will make the game very different. We really had an abandoned mental asylum with lots of rooms and nooks and crannies and stuff, which have been used as a squat thing, cleaned out, and etc. etc. I don't know what location they're getting for New Orleans, but that will make it
it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, but gorgeous might not be what this lab is written for.
All right, Michelle, we're gonna have to talk more about this off stream because you got to fill me in on this whole. So putting a corset on me and I'm not going to get sent to these cons for free is basically what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Hey,
what the fuck, man? Oh my plan. Why do you always got to burst my fucking bubble, Michelle? Why? Why?
I'm a systems designer. It comes with the territory.
Michelle, how many people have gotten to put John Barrowman in a...
Yes! Michelle put John fucking Barrowman in a fucking corset. That's why I kept saying corset, because that's all I could think of. Yeah. And I love the picture of her when she finally realized hey, this is John fucking Barrowman, and she was
the actual moment. No, what you didn't see is there's someone over in the corner going, "Holy crap, it's fucking Captain Jack in a corset," and that's when it finally clicked that it actually was John Barrowman, because there were plenty of hints around me that it actually was John Barrowman, but. So his sister was standing right there, and I'm like, Carolyn Barrowman, there's no way. And then I heard that, and it's just this picture of me going,
yes.
As I'm pulling him in.
It's the most epic picture ever. The realization, they got it just at the moment when she realized I'm putting John Barrowman in a fucking corset. It was classic.
It was just mind. Well, because the thing is, he had come in because we had this mannequin up on our booth. So backstory. I worked for a corset company and still do from time to time at conventions. That's how I get sent to conventions for free. Is I go and model for this corset company. I've been their ad model. If you were at San Diego Comic-Con last year, you got the collectible, what do you call it, like schedule?
The key is still fucking corsets.
Yes.
At some level, the key is a fucking corset. I will
and you open the schedule, and if you go to right before the Eisners, there's a full page ad for Scarlet's corsets. That's actually me in an outtake from a Werewolf the Apocalypse shoot, where Meredith Gerber from Silhouette Studios was taking a picture, and one of our friends was off scene making a dick joke, and I'm laughing my ass off. And that became this picture that 300,000 nerds saw. Like, the San Diego Comic-Con.
I don't think she's still talking to me, but anyway.
Oh, Meredith? Oh, well.
Yeah.
But 300,000 nerds saw me laughing at a dick joke in a corset. So at DragonCon, which is my usual con that I would go to because I was living in Atlanta, we were doing that, and up in the corner of our booth we always have this mannequin named Cupcake, who she's got a bright green and black corset and two pink and a green tutu on, and this bright pink bandeau on. And John Barrowman wanted to wear that set for his next talk. But
awesome.
But he was not used to wearing women's corsets, so even though I had him fitted properly, he was like, "No, I can't do this," because it turns out he's not a chest breather, he's a stomach breather. So which you can't do in a corset. You kind of do, but it's weird. It's a different style of breathing that makes you sit up straight.
Okay. Anyway, getting back to the Grand Masquerade.
Yes.
Tyler, any of the events stuck out at you that you would really that you're looking forward to? Are you going, Tyler? First of all.
No, I am not going to the Grand Masquerade.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, but I was planning to whenever videos and such are released, I definitely.
Yeah, we'll be down there and we'll be posting videos on worldofdarknessnews.net. So hopefully you're there. But anything specific from what you saw posted that you're looking forward to?
What I'm holding out for is I'm hoping that some of the things that haven't been listed yet or spoken about, I'm hoping I'll hear something about a possible game or something. That's what
like
I hope.
Or something.
Yeah, because I mean, I definitely don't think that there's going to be a White Wolf MMO anytime soon. But I think the next logical step would be like a single-player game, maybe a spiritual successor to Bloodlines.
Yeah, I think we have a much higher probability of, a really good game developer, getting a license to do a single-player game, or / co-op game. I think that highly more probable than that. As I've gone on record many times, I would love to see a developer like Larian Studios, Obsidian. What's the other one I named?
Paradox do it themselves.
Or even. But the problem I have with Paradox doing it in-house is they would really need to ramp up their size. I mean, to do a AAA single like a Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines level game. I mean, they used to doing these 2D strategy games, which you get away with.
They also moved their
40-50 people. With a game like Bloodlines, you got to ramp up to 80, 100, 110 people.
There's also an argument, and I'm not going to say much more because the goddamn internet will make theories out of whatever I say because I'm at Obsidian. There's also the issue that as they go towards an IPO, there is an advantage to doing it through a subsidiary or through a licensing in the fact that they're one step removed from the shareholders, which would give Martin more creative control, etc.
Yeah.
So that's all I'll say on that because the internet will take everything I say wrong.
Damn you, internet! Damn you to hell.
And yes, Crusader Kings with Elders would be awesome. Or a
Yeah.
werewolf.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, if they want to do a strategy game like a Vampire Elders game where you're an elder and your job is to subvert and take over cities, and I mean, something like that would be really cool. You know,
War of the Antediluvians as Crusader Kings.
yeah, exactly. Something like that would be awesome. And to do it in-house, they have the infrastructure for that. But to do, a 3D first/third-person AAA RPG, like at the levels, like I said, of Bloodlines or what have you, that would require significant. They'd have to almost double, probably their staff, close to double their staff size, and it would just make more, in my opinion, it would just make more sense to approach, a place like Lorien or Obsidian, who already have that infrastructure in place, and say, hey, here's our license.
And may or may not have a couple of producers from, or may or may not have a producer or artist or designer or 12 or 13 that I can think of that originally worked on Bloodlines. The producer on the project I'm on actually was a producer on Bloodlines.
I'm going to be really, really nice, and I'm not going to comment or imply or say anything to that. I'm going to let that comment.
No, trust me, it's going to, I already know it's going to be on /R White Wolf, but no, there are no, as previously stated by both Paradox and Obsidian, there are no current plans for World of Darkness.
There are no current plans.
In Obsidian.
In Obsidian.
There
are no current plans. Is the official statement.
That is the official statement by Obsidian. That is the official statement from Paradox.
Yes.
Like was said before when Tyranny was announced, which is fucking awesome, and you all should go play it to get your little evil and darkness fix at least.
Yes. No, actually, in fairness, and I'm not saying this because you're my BFF, it seems like a really cool game, and I would encourage anyone who's into third-person role-playing games, fantasy role-playing games, to check it out.
This is something that Obsidian has definitely wanted for a while. Is that evil's already won?
Yeah, it's a great concept.
Oh yeah, it's
like Dungeon Keeper, but on another level.
So, back to Crusader Kings and Vampire the Masquerade. Has anyone played the Vampire the Masquerade mod for Crusader Kings?
Yes, and it's awesome.
I had a bunch of friends. We all downloaded the mod because we play Crusader Kings from time to time, and we all downloaded the mod. We went to play it, but the current version of Crusader Kings wasn't supported by the mod. We were all very, very upset. We're like, damn it, why do they have to upgrade Crusader Kings so often?
You could roll it back.
Oh yeah, we didn't try that. I might have to try that. But I'm
sure they'll update the mod. I'm sure the mod maker will update it at some point.
I can also imagine and talk to Telltale, and we could have a Telltale series style of World of Darkness Vampire.
But they're all linear, so that might be an issue.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, in fairness, if they take the approach, I mean, I know people who game master, and not just the storyteller system, but a plethora of. I've talked to many game masters over the years, a plethora of games, and I know some game masters, storytellers, DMs, what have you, that are into the whole. Your characters are basically a character in this preconceived plot, and basically, no matter what you do, the whole you have free will and it is an illusion. This is the story. This is what is going to happen, and you're just basically playing along for the ride.
If they gave it to Telltale, you're more than likely going to see.
That's exactly the type of game they have. Where there's some there's some figments of some aspects of an illusion that you actually have real control, but it's actually a very linear. And there are some game. I do not subscribe to that. I'm a very dynamic sandbox kind of storyteller, game master, what have you. But that there are some people who enjoy that they basically want an interactive novel.
The problem is that would not, no, that's not how, but the thing is that's not Telltale style in that way. What you're more than likely going to see is if you played Eddie Webb's interactive novel, yes, you could see that way. But that's Eddie, and he understands the game better than probably anybody at this point. Sorry, Eddie. But also, when you look at the way Telltale develops stuff, you'd be more than likely to see a revival of the Vampire the Masquerade comic book series and see that translated into a Telltale game. Telltale's style of narrative design and gameplay very much lends itself to comic book adaptations and stories that go off of linear storylines. For example, Borderlands, same thing. And when you have that split from, especially when you look at the old comic books, they would lend themselves very well to being translated into a digital storyline, along with the fact you have those iconic characters, etc., and bring them back. Because, let's face it, those are still extremely well-loved characters. And the art style, too, because Telltale has that unique art style, would bring itself well to those old comic books coming back as digitalizations and with interactivity.
Fair point. Nathan, getting us back on track. Is there any so far of what's been announced? Is there anything at the Grand Masquerade that kind of piques your interest, and you'd be interested in seeing the video of?
Yes, in the larger world, I go to it. I did go to its predecessor, the International Camera Conclave, 15 years ago, but. And I think I'm more interested in how the end of the line works with an American audience, because changing the player base is.
I'm not into LARP, and I'm looking forward to that too, because they are going to have an end of the line style Nordic LARP, and I'd be very interested to see how it plays out in North America.
Yes, because players have got very different issues on how comfortable they are with physicality and wanting to constantly get explicit consent, whereas end of the line works on the basis it's your responsibility to tap out if you're not comfortable.
Right.
God, I forgot about that.
And basically, what Michelle was saying, the LARPers in North America are a bunch of pussies. So
no, that's not what I was saying.
I'm kidding.
But no, yes. There's also
don't get me in trouble.
Aside from that narrow point. Yes, there's also the issue that American LARPers are very much
let me say that.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, the North American LARPers are kind of ham and eggers, and they're kind of pussies because, oh my God, he freaking brushed up against me. Now I gotta go cry to the fucking game master for 10 minutes. Like seriously, come on.
We did have Americans at end of the line. Obviously, they were somewhat predisposed to Nordic style.
Right.
And I think one of them I did overhear saying afterwards how he'd started a rumour that got his enemy killed. So even then, he was obviously playing a kind of gamist way. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. Yes, the Nordic LARP has had this expression in recent years of play to lose. It's now actually moved away from that. At the start of the end of the line, it was clearly said they hate that expression. It's play to create what's most interesting play.
Right.
The Spanish have a term, play to flow.
Now, following on that, and trying to keep the whole Grand Masquerade aspect in, because they did, as I mentioned, they are going to have a Nordic-style LARP event at the Grand Masquerade. Do you think this whole pre-made characters aspect, do you think that's going to become more standardized? Where, listen, we're going to give you this pre-created character because everyone has this pre-made character that are purposely made to foster and nurture interesting interactions and create this drama.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the direction in general LARPs are going to go, instead of, because if you think about it, when you create your own character, there's no inherent built-in confrontation or drama or or
Relationships at all.
associations with anyone else.
Yes. Well, in the buffer scene, it's usually American character. In the freeform scene, which America already has, there's Intercon, where they play these kind of games, where the characters are pre-written there. And the question is Vampire going to follow the buffer model, which it has traditionally, or the freeform model, which is also American? And yes, I would like to think that for one-off games, pre-written characters make an awful lot of sense.
Well, the American model tends to do.
All those problems, you've got relations and goals and things and stuff to play on from the get-go, rather than 60 strangers making small talk for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's like usually they do a hybrid model where you create your character beforehand, submit it for approval, and that allows you to do connections beforehand. So, like, I'm already set up for Grand Masquerade that I have 2 Childer. I have no fucking clue what clan I'm playing, but I just know I have 2 Childer because 2 people want to play underneath me.
That's a very good point. In reality, of course, it's always a hybrid, because even if I'm given a character, it's up to me to interpret what's written, to fill in the blanks, to understand how I'm going to play this. If I'm given a character who's a racist, does that mean he's shouting racial abuse constantly, or does that mean he's just giving people dirty looks and he's being discreet about it? For example, there's a scope of interpretation which you always have. The other important point, I think, is that being given a character gives you alibi, because you can say to yourself and other people, it's not my fault, the organisers made me play it. So I mean, Bjark, who was involved in writing End of the Line, and he's doing the Berlin game, he once told me he would never write a paedophile character for himself to play, but if someone else gave him one, he would play it. Because at that point, he's got that distance and social alibi that he can say, no, I didn't choose this, the organiser asked me to play it, so I am.
All right. Sounds good. Let's just wrap up here, guys, because we're having another epic marathon. Just so you know, Nathan, we usually say, oh, this thing will last an hour and a half, and 2.5 plus hours later, we're still going strong. So, yeah, I don't know why our WoDCasts are. I don't know what happens. It's like 2 hours goes by and 2+ hours, and somehow we're still.
Shenanigans, that's what.
Yeah, it's fucking shenanigans. So let's just wrap up. I think we had some really good conversation. I think we hit some really great points. I definitely want to thank everyone here. I'll give the final word to Tyler about the Grand Masquerade. Any last words or thoughts about the Grand Masquerade, Tyler?
Well, the last exciting Grand Masquerade I heard was probably back in 2011, so I'm hoping this Grand Masquerade will be something to be excited for.
Yes, I'm hoping for some good announcements when it comes to whatever they end up calling V4, the next version of Masquerade. I'm hoping for, crossing my fingers, announcing some sort of single-player PC game a la Bloodlines. I'll take either one of those. The trip will be worth it. Both would be.
I want to see some.
I mean, they give me both. I'll be fucking someone in the lobby or something. I'll be going fucking crazy. It'll be awesome. But yeah. I'm hoping for one. If I can get one or the other, it'll be worth it. And no offense to the LARP aspect. I mean, I'm sure the LARP people have fun, and there's great stuff to talk about that. But again, you and I, that's just not,
Yeah, that's what I'm.
But it's not, it's just not our thing. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited for. The possibility of a single-player RPG, and then also I want to see some of the direction they want to take this post-Gehenna Vampire.
Exactly.
I think it could be really interesting, and I just hope it goes right.
Yeah, I mean, it can be like the best things. It can be awesome sauce, or it could be So it honestly can go either way. So but I have faith that I'm keeping the faith. So let's wrap up. Michelle, any final thoughts? And if people want to reach out to you, how can they?
Easiest way to get a hold of me is at MMOGirlKai on Twitter. Look for Pathfinder Adventure card game digital edition on your iPad or Android tablet in 2 weeks. So have fun, play the game, buy the season pass. It gets you everything. Should be tons of fun. That's what I've been working on for the past few months. I will be at the Grand Masquerade. I will have Obsidian people with me. I'm hoping to be at next year's Midwinter. I'm not going to guarantee it just because there are 2 designers on this team, and one of us always has to be here. Well, not always has to, but it's good to have a designer here. Let me see what else. Yeah, that's really it. Go play my game that I've been working really hard on.
Yes, please, definitely. And let me just say, I've said this in many WoDCasts before. I'll definitely say it again. Obsidian is an awesome company, and they deserve all the support they can get. So please do go check out her game. Nathan, thank you so much. I hope you had fun on your first WoDCast. Hopefully you can return. You're more than welcome to. If people want to get in touch with you through social media or what have you, how can they?
They can find me Nathan Hook on Facebook. It's probably the easiest way, or LinkedIn. And I've also got my own new game out, Midsummer, a hidden role fairy card game, which is available on the GameCrafter website. So it's print on demand. Is available now.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely, everyone, please do check that out. And Tyler, I know you're not a game dev, but how can people get in touch?
I guess the easiest way would be Facebook. I think I have Tyler Markup, which is similar to HTML, except it's just Tyler Markup.
All right. And anything you need to plug?
No. I'm just. I don't need to plug anything.
You're a simple man, and I appreciate that. Again, thank you. Anyone who wants to get in touch with me, WOD_news on Twitter, or of course, worldofdarkness.news, the website. Register, get involved in the discussion. We always have our next interview coming up is going to be from By Night Studios. That is in the process. Hopefully we'll have that within the next week or so. That'll be up.
Wait, who'd you get?
Oh, that's a surprise.
Oh, come on.
That's a surprise, Michelle.
Wait, are they getting a narwhal tattoo?
That's a surprise, Michelle.
Narwhals.
No. There's a joke that involves me getting super stressed out before an interview and ends with one of the devs from By Night Studios having to get a narwhal tattoo, which I vote for on his ass, but his wife vetoed it.
I like that story. I love the stories you guys always come up with. So I want to thank everyone. Thank our panel. Michelle, Nathan, Tyler, and of course Jeff, who had to leave a little early. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully we can have you back soon. We always have at least one female on the panel, and that 10 episodes, we've always had one, if not two, females on, and because I always say I'm a big proponent of getting the female perspective, because let's be honest, they make up half, whether it's in your face or not, they make up half of the industry, if not in the development side, definitely on the player side, and I think it's very important. So I want to thank really Michelle for taking the time, because we almost had a sausage party roundtable, and that, I mean, we'd still have a lot of fun, but it wouldn't be as much fun. So
wait. We all know I have the biggest sausage in the room.
Wow. Someone make a meme of her saying that. That's awesome. So, thanks everyone so much. WorldOfDarkness.news. follow all my friends here on the round table. Check out their projects if they got those going on. And we will see you in about 3-4 weeks. Until then, take care.